They said she was cursed, broken, worthless. Tonight, in front of the entire Black Ridge pack, her destined mate, the man the moon itself had chosen for her, is about to prove them right. Kayla Vire stands in the center of the gathering circle, dirt still under her nails from scrubbing the packhouse floors. She can feel every eye on her, judging, waiting. Alpha Darius steps forward, his face twisted with disgust. I, Darius Thornwood, reject you, Kayla Vire, as my mate. The bond shatters like glass in her chest. And this is only the beginning. Stay until the end to see how the rejected Omega becomes the most feared force in the realm. Like this video and comment what city you're watching from. The bonfire crackled against the night sky, sending sparks into the darkness like dying stars. Kayla Vire kept her head down, her fingers twisted in the worn fabric of her only decent dress, a hand-me-down from one of the pack's Delta daughters who'd outgrown it 2 seasons ago. The hem was frayed, the color faded to something between gray and forgotten, and there was a stain on the left sleeve that no amount of scrubbing could remove. She shouldn't be here. Everyone knew it. She knew it. But when your destined mate was the Alpha's nephew, you didn't get to refuse the summoning, even if that mate had spent the last 3 months pretending you didn't exist. Even if showing up meant becoming the night's entertainment, Kayla pressed herself against the rough bark of an oak tree at the clearing's edge, trying to make herself smaller, invisible. The gathering was in full swing, wolves in their finest clothes, silver jewelry catching firelight, wine flowing freely from casks that cost more than Kayla earned in a year of servitude. This was the autumn moon ceremony, when new matings were formally recognized and blessed by the Alpha. 3 months ago, during the summer solstice, Kayla had felt it, the mate bond snapping into place like a golden thread connecting her soul to another. She'd been in the packhouse kitchen, elbow deep in dishwater, when suddenly the world had tilted and reformed around a single truth. Darius Thornwood was hers, and she was his. She'd dropped the plate she was washing. It shattered on the stone floor, and she hadn't even noticed. All she could feel was the bond, warm and certain and impossibly right, humming through every nerve in her body. Darius had been in the main hall celebrating something with the other high-ranking wolves. Kayla had dried her hands, heart pounding, and walked toward him in a daze. She didn't have a plan, didn't know what to say, but the bond pulled her forward, and she couldn't resist. She'd reached the doorway, and their eyes had met across the crowded room. For 1 perfect second, she'd seen recognition flash across his face. Shock, maybe even wonder. Then his expression had shuddered like a door slamming closed, and he'd turned away. That was 3 months ago. He hadn't spoken to her since, hadn't acknowledged her existence, had walked past her in corridors like she was furniture, invisible and inconsequential. But he'd felt it. Kayla was certain. The bond didn't lie. So when the formal summons came, a terse note delivered by a messenger who wouldn't meet her eyes, Kayla had allowed herself a fragile, foolish hope. Maybe tonight he would finally accept her. Maybe in front of the whole pack he would claim her as his mate, and for the first time in her 18 years, she would belong somewhere. "Move, Omega!" Someone shoved past her, nearly knocking her into the fire pit. Laughter rippled through the gathered wolves. Kayla caught herself against a log bench, heat flooding her cheeks, and pressed back into the shadows. "She actually came," a voice sneered nearby. Mara Grayson, the beta's daughter, stood with her circle of friends, all of them dressed in silk and silver, their hair elaborately braided and decorated with autumn flowers. "Did you see what she's wearing? I threw that dress out because my dog tore it." "And she still thought it was good enough for a mating ceremony," another girl chimed in, barely suppressing her giggles. "That's sad even for her. Maybe she thinks Darius will finally acknowledge her," a third added. "You know, like in those pathetic romance stories where the Omega wins the prince and they all live happily ever after." "Darius would rather mate with a rogue than touch her," Mara said, loud enough to carry. Several nearby wolves turned to look, smirking. Kayla's nails dug into her palms hard enough to draw blood. She'd learned long ago not to react. Reacting only made it worse. Fighting back just proved you were aggressive, unstable, dangerous, all the things they already believed about her. She'd been the pack's favorite target since she was old enough to shift, or rather, old enough to fail at shifting properly. Most wolf pups had their first shift around age 12, a rite of passage celebrated with feasts and gifts. Kayla remembered her 12th birthday with the kind of clarity that came from trauma. She'd been so excited, so certain that shifting would prove she belonged, that she wasn't different from the other pups. The shift had come during a full moon ceremony, with half the pack watching. It had been agony. Where other pups transformed smoothly, their bodies flowing from human to wolf in seconds, Kayla's shift had been slow and wrong. Her bones had ground and cracked, refusing to settle into proper alignment. Her wolf form, when it finally emerged, had been small, barely larger than a coyote, with patchy fur and eyes that wouldn't quite focus. The pack healer had examined her afterward, frowning. "The wolf is there," she'd announced, "but it's incomplete. Malformed. I've never seen anything like it." "Cursed," someone had whispered. "Broken," another had agreed. The whispers had followed her ever since. Her shifts never improved. Each transformation was painful, prolonged, and resulted in a wolf too weak to hunt, too small to fight, too pathetic to be worth acknowledging. Other wolves her age moved up through pack ranks, deltas, gammas, some even beta track. Kayla remained Omega, assigned to cooking and cleaning and tasks no one else wanted. She told herself it was fine. She had a place, even if it was at the bottom. She had shelter and food, and the pack's protection, however grudging. Then the mate bond had formed, and for the first time in years, Kayla had dared to hope that maybe, just maybe, she could be something more. That hope was about to be crushed. The drumming started, a deep, resonant beat that signaled the ceremony's beginning. The crowd quieted, conversations dying mid-sentence as all attention turned to the raised platform at the clearing's center. Alpha Cornelius Blackridge stepped into the firelight, his massive frame casting shadows that seemed to swallow the surrounding flames. Even at 60, Cornelius radiated the kind of power that made weaker wolves drop their eyes instinctively. He was broad-shouldered and scarred, his face weathered by decades of rule. His eyes, pale gray and cold, swept across the assembled pack with the expression of a man counting his possessions. Kayla looked down. Making eye contact with the Alpha was a privilege she didn't have. "Tonight," Cornelius's voice boomed across the clearing, deep and commanding, "we gather under the autumn moon to honor the bonds that strengthen our pack. The mate bond is sacred, chosen by the moon herself, and when two wolves are joined, they become more than individuals. They become pillars of our community." Polite applause. Kayla's heart hammered against her ribs. The bond in her chest pulled toward where Darius stood near the platform, dressed in formal black with silver threading. He looked like he'd been carved from marble, beautiful, untouchable, and cold. "3 matings will be recognized tonight," Cornelius continued. "3 bonds blessed by the moon and accepted by our pack. 3. Kayla's throat tightened. Was she one of them? She had to be. The bond was real. Darius felt it, even if he'd been avoiding her. Surely he wouldn't reject it. Not publicly, not like this. "First," Cornelius raised his hand, "my son, Marcus Blackridge, and his chosen mate, Helena Frost of the Riverbend Pack. Chosen, not fated." Marcus had found his true mate 2 years ago, a Delta female he'd rejected without ceremony because she wasn't high-ranking enough. Helena was a strategic match, a Beta's daughter from an allied pack. Pretty, connected, acceptable. They stepped forward to applause and cheers. Marcus, golden-haired and built like a warrior, pulled Helena close and kissed her for the crowd. She blushed prettily. They made a perfect picture, everything a mating should be, everything Kayla would never be. "May their union bring strength to Blackridge," Cornelius declared, and the pack echoed the blessing. Kayla barely heard it. Her focus was on Darius, who stood perfectly still, his expression unreadable. The bond thrummed between them, insistent. "Look at me," she thought desperately. "Just look at me." He didn't. "Second," Cornelius continued, "Delta Commander Riker Stone and his mate, Vivian Cross." Another cheer. Riker was popular, a skilled fighter and loyal enforcer. Vivian was a Gamma's daughter, pretty in a sharp-featured way. They accepted the pack's blessing with matching smiles, 2 down. Kayla's hands were shaking. She clasped them together, trying to still the trembling. The bond wound tighter, anticipation and dread mixing until she couldn't tell them apart. "And third," Cornelius paused, and something about that pause made Kayla's blood run cold. The Alpha's gaze swept the crowd, predatory and pleased, before landing directly on her. "My nephew, Darius Thornwood, will address the pack regarding a delicate matter. Delicate matter. Not his mate. Not his bond. A delicate matter. Oh gods. Darius stepped forward onto the platform. The firelight loved him, painting his sharp features in gold and shadow. He was everything Kayla wasn't. Strong, beautiful, powerful, wanted. The bond sang at his nearness, pulling her toward him even as every instinct screamed to run. Some of you know, Darius began, his voice steady and clear and absolutely devoid of emotion, that 3 months ago I felt a mate bond form. Silence crashed over the clearing. Every eye turned to Kayla. She felt their stares like physical weight pressing down, suffocating. The moon, in her infinite wisdom, sometimes tests us, Darius continued, still not looking at her. She binds us to challenges we must overcome, obstacles meant to prove our strength and dedication to the pack. No, he wasn't. A bond is sacred, he said, but so is the integrity of our pack. So is the future of our bloodline. So is the duty we owe to those who depend on us for leadership and protection. Kayla couldn't breathe. The world was narrowing to a single point, Darius's mouth, forming words that would destroy her. I cannot in good conscience accept a mate who would weaken everything I've worked to build, who would taint my bloodline with defective offspring, who would bring shame to the Thornwood name and disgrace to this pack. Each word was a knife, precisely placed. Therefore, Darius said, and finally, he looked at her. His eyes were ice. I, Darius Thornwood, reject you, Kayla Vire, as my mate. The bond didn't just break. It detonated. Kayla gasped, the sound ripping from her throat as pain unlike anything she'd ever experienced tore through her chest. It felt like someone had reached inside her ribcage, grabbed her heart, and yanked it out still beating. The golden thread that had connected them, the bond that was supposed to be eternal, unbreakable, sacred, didn't snap cleanly. It shredded, each individual fiber tearing away in slow, agonizing increments. She couldn't scream, couldn't breathe. Her lungs had forgotten how to work. The world reduced to white-hot agony and the terrible hollow sound of her own heart trying to beat around the absence of something that was supposed to be there forever. Her knees hit the ground. She didn't remember falling. Distantly, she was aware of the crowd watching, but they seemed miles away, separated by the wall of pain crushing her from the inside out. Accept the rejection. Darius's voice cut through the haze, cold and commanding. Say the words, Kayla. End this. She tried to speak. Nothing came out but a choked sob. Say the words. Each word was sharp, impatient. Her voice cracked, barely audible. She tried again, forcing the words past the vice around her throat. I accept. Another sob. She bit down hard on her lip, tasting blood. I accept your rejection. The remaining threads of the bond withered and died like flowers touched by frost. The acute pain shifted into something different, less sharp, but somehow worse. A hollow, aching emptiness that spread through her chest where the bond had lived. This would never heal. Not completely. She would carry this wound for the rest of her life, however long that might be. Kayla stayed on her knees in the dirt, her vision blurred with tears she refused to let fall. She wouldn't cry, not here, not in front of them. Furthermore, a new voice cut through the murmurs, Alpha Cornelius stepping forward with the bearing of a judge pronouncing sentence. I invoke the Alpha's right of judgment. Kayla Vire, approach. She couldn't move. Her body wouldn't respond. Now, Cornelius barked. Somehow Kayla pushed herself to her feet. Her legs shook violently, threatening to collapse again, but she locked her knees and stumbled forward. The crowd parted around her like she was diseased. Maybe she was. She reached the platform and fell to her knees again. Submission, respect. All the things an Omega owed her Alpha. Cornelius looked down at her with undisguised disgust. You have been a blight on this pack since the day you were born. Your mother was a whore who refused to name your father, probably because she didn't know which rogue had sired you. You carry tainted blood, a malformed wolf, and a curse that has brought nothing but shame to Blackridge. Kayla's mother. She barely remembered her, just fragments. Soft hands braiding her hair. A lullaby sung in a language Kayla didn't recognize. And then fever and death, and being shuffled off to the pack's orphan house, where she learned quickly that some pups were worth more than others. Your very existence is an insult to the strong wolves who built this pack, Cornelius continued. You consume our resources, occupy our space, and contribute nothing of value. Even your destined mate, chosen by the moon herself, finds you so repulsive that he's willing to face rejection sickness rather than accept you. Someone in the crowd laughed. Others joined in. Therefore, Cornelius raised his voice, making sure every wolf could hear. Effective immediately, you're stripped of your pack name and all rights and protections associated with membership in Black Ridge. You are exiled to the frontier territories beyond our borders. If you are found within our lands after dawn, you will be executed. If you speak our name to outsiders, you will be hunted. You are no one, from nowhere, and you will die alone and forgotten, as you deserve. The pronouncement hung in the air like an axe blade. Exile. The frontier territories were where rogues went to die. The land was harsh, the winters brutal, the hunting scarce. Predators, both animal and wolf, roamed freely, and pack law didn't protect you beyond the border stones. Male wolves sometimes survived through strength and viciousness. Female wolves didn't survive at all. Omegas lasted days at best. Cornelius was sentencing her to death. Everyone knew it. The execution would just be slower, more painful, carried out by cold and starvation and whatever found her first in the wild. Someone spat at her feet. The glob of saliva landed on her dress, and she stared at it numbly. Any last words? Cornelius asked, though his tone made it clear he didn't actually care. Kayla lifted her head, looked at him, at Darius, at the crowd of wolves who'd tormented her, worked her to exhaustion, treated her like garbage for 18 years. She wanted to scream at them, to curse them, to tell them exactly what she thought of their cruelty, their arrogance, their casual destruction of anyone they deemed unworthy. But what would be the point? No, she said quietly. I have nothing to say to you. Cornelius's eyes narrowed. He'd expected begging, tears, a pathetic display of an Omega pleading for mercy. He wasn't going to get it. Then you have until sunrise to leave our territory, he said dismissively. I suggest you run, little Omega. The frontier has teeth, and they're hungry. Wait. Mara Grayson stepped forward, that cruel smile painted across her pretty face. She'd changed into a deep blue dress that probably cost more than Kayla had earned in her entire life. Before she goes, I think we should all know why Darius rejected her. I mean, being weak is one thing, but there must be something truly revolting about her, right? Something beyond the obvious? Mara, Darius started, but she ignored him, circling Kayla like a predator who'd cornered wounded prey. Tell us, Kayla, Mara cooed, false sweetness dripping from every word. What's wrong with you? Why are you so fundamentally broken? Is it because your mother was a whore who spread her legs for rogues? Or is it because you're just naturally defective, a mistake the moon made when she was drunk? Laughter rippled through the crowd. Encouraged, Mara pressed on. I mean, your wolf is pathetic. Your bloodline is trash. You can't fight, can't hunt, probably can't even breed properly. What use are you? What purpose could you possibly serve beyond scrubbing floors and emptying chamber pots? That's enough, Darius said, but his voice lacked conviction. He didn't actually want her to stop. No, I think we deserve answers, Marcus joined in, stepping down from the platform with that lazy arrogance only the truly privileged could manage. We fed her for 18 years, housed her, tolerated her presence. And what did we get in return? A defective Omega who's probably barren, definitely cursed, and so worthless that even her destined mate would rather suffer rejection sickness than claim her. She should have been culled as a pup, someone called from the crowd. It's what we do with the weak ones in the litter. My father wanted to, Marcus said casually, like he was discussing the weather. But my mother said it would be cruel. Looks like cruelty would have been kinder. The voices built on each other, feeding off the pack's collective cruelty. Cursed bloodline. Tainted. Probably not even fully wolf. I heard her mother was insane. Maybe that's what she passed down. The moon made a mistake with this one. Kayla stood in the center of the verbal assault, frozen. Part of her, the part that had survived 18 years of this, wanted to defend herself. To scream that she'd worked harder than any of them, that she'd cooked their meals and cleaned their homes and mended their clothes and never once complained or asked for anything in return. But what was the point? They'd already decided who she was, what she was. Nothing she said would change that. Enough, Cornelius's voice cut through the noise. We're wasting time on trash. Kayla, or whatever your name is now, you have your sentence. Go. If you're still here when the sun rises, my wolves will tear you apart, and they'll enjoy it. He turned his back on her. Dismissal. She was already forgotten. Kayla stood there for one more heartbeat, surrounded by hundreds of wolves who hated her, rejected by a mate who couldn't even look at her, condemned to death by an alpha who saw her as less than nothing. Then she turned and walked away. She didn't run. That would have given them satisfaction. She walked back straight despite the pain, past wolves who stepped aside quickly like she carried disease. Behind her, the celebration resumed almost immediately. Music started up. Someone called for more wine. Laughter echoed through the clearing. Within minutes, they'd forgotten about her. She was already gone. The pack house loomed against the night sky, all 3 stories of timber and stone that housed the ranking families. Kayla had spent more time in this building than anywhere else, always in the kitchens or servant quarters, always scrubbing or cooking or hauling water. She'd memorized every creaking floorboard, every drafty corner, every shortcut through the halls. Her room, if it could even be called that, was a converted storage closet on the ground floor, tucked behind the kitchens where the smell of old grease and rotting vegetables was constant. It was barely large enough for a cot and a small trunk, with no window and a door that didn't lock. But it had been hers. Kayla pushed the door open and stood in the doorway for a long moment, just looking. The cot with its thin, lumpy mattress. The trunk where she kept her few possessions. The single shelf holding a chipped mug and a hairbrush missing half its bristles. 18 years of life reduced to a closet that smelled like onions. She pulled out the canvas bag she used for laundry and started packing. A few changes of clothes, all worn and patched multiple times. An extra pair of socks with holes in the toes. The blanket from her cot, wool, but moth-eaten and thin. A small knife she'd found in the forest years ago, its blade pitted with rust but still sharp enough to cut rope. And finally, from the very bottom of the trunk, wrapped in a scrap of cloth, a carved wooden bird. Kayla unwrapped it carefully, running her fingers over the smooth wood. She'd found it in the forest when she was 7, half buried in leaves. Someone had carved it with incredible skill, every feather detailed, wings spread mid-flight, beak open like it was singing. She'd kept it hidden for 11 years, terrified someone would take it away. It was the only thing she'd ever considered truly hers. She tucked it into the bag and stood, slinging the pack over her shoulder. The rejection wound throbbed with every movement, a constant reminder that part of her was missing now. Gone. Dead. You're actually leaving. Kayla spun. Darius stood in the doorway, one hand braced against the frame. He'd changed out of his formal clothes into simple traveling gear, leather pants, a loose shirt, boots made for walking. He looked tired. The ice in his expression had melted into something harder to read. Your uncle exiled me, Kayla said, surprised her voice was steady. You rejected me in front of the entire pack. What did you think would happen? I didn't know he'd exile you, Darius said, and he actually sounded like he meant it. I thought he'd just demote you. Put you in the kitchens permanently, maybe. Or assign you to the stables. Not, he gestured vaguely. This. How merciful of you, Kayla said flatly. You only wanted me humiliated and degraded for the rest of my life. Exile was too much. His jaw tightened. Don't act like you're the victim here. I'm not acting. You don't understand what being mated to you would have cost me. The words burst out of him, raw and frustrated. My position, my reputation, my entire future. The pack would never accept an Omega Luna, especially not you. Then why didn't the moon choose someone else? Kayla demanded. If I'm so terrible, so unworthy, why bind us together? I don't know. Darius ran a hand through his hair, and for a moment he looked almost vulnerable, almost human. I've been asking myself that for 3 months. Why you? What did I do to deserve this? Maybe it's a test. Maybe the moon wanted to see if I was strong enough to resist a weak bond. Maybe it's punishment for something I did in a past life. I don't fucking know, Kayla. It's not a weak bond. Her voice came out quieter than she intended. I can feel it. Even now, even destroyed, I can feel where it was. Can't you? Something flickered across his face. Pain, maybe, or regret. It vanished quickly. What I feel doesn't matter, he said. What matters is that I couldn't tie myself to someone so fundamentally weak, someone whose wolf barely functions, Someone who would give me defective pups, if you could even carry them. Someone who would drag the Thornwood name through the mud. There it was. The truth beneath all the justifications and excuses. She wasn't good enough, had never been good enough, would never be good enough. You're right, Kayla said quietly. I am weak. I've always been weak. My wolf is broken. My bloodline is probably cursed if I even have one. And I would have made a terrible Luna. Darius blinked, clearly not expecting agreement. But you know what? Kayla continued, shouldering her bag. I never asked to be your mate. I never asked the moon to choose me. And I sure as hell never asked you to reject me in front of the entire pack like I was something disgusting you scraped off your boot. She moved toward the door. Darius didn't step aside. The frontier will kill you, he said. You won't last a week, maybe not even 3 days. Probably not. Then why go? You could throw yourself on my uncle's mercy, beg to stay as a servant with no name, no status. At least you'd be alive. Kayla looked up at him, really looked, saw the handsome face that had haunted her dreams for 3 months, the strong jaw, the eyes that had never once softened when they landed on her, the mouth that had just destroyed her in front of everyone she knew. Because, she said, I would rather die free in the wilderness than live on my knees for people who hate me. At least out there, when something kills me, it'll be honest about it. For a long moment, they just stood there. The rejection wound throbbed between them, a shared pain neither would acknowledge. Then Darius stepped aside. Kayla walked past him, through the kitchen, and out into the night. She didn't look back. There was nothing behind her worth seeing, just a closet that smelled like onions and a pack that had never wanted her. The stars were bright overhead, cold and distant and uncaring. She started walking toward the border. Mom, the frontier territories began where civilization ended. The border was marked by ancient stones, each one taller than a man, carved with warning runes that glowed faintly in the moonlight. Beyond these stones, pack law held no power. Beyond these stones, the strong survived and the weak died screaming. Kayla crossed the boundary just as the first hint of dawn touched the eastern horizon. The rejection wound pulsed, a steady throb of pain that reminded her she was still alive, still breathing, still able to feel, even if all she felt was agony. She'd read about rejected mates in the pack library, one of the few places she could hide and be ignored. The book said rejection could be survived if both parties accepted quickly and cleanly. The bond would sever, leaving a scar, but life would continue. They didn't mention that the scar would burn, that every breath would hurt, that you'd feel like something vital had been carved out of your chest, leaving a gaping wound that would never truly heal. The landscape changed almost immediately after she crossed the border. The carefully maintained forests of pack territory, where hunting trails were cleared and dangerous predators culled, gave way to wild, tangled growth. Trees grew at odd angles, their branches reaching like grasping fingers. The underbrush was thick and hostile, full of thorns and hidden roots designed to trip unwary travelers. Kayla pushed forward, her canvas bag growing heavier with each step. She had no map, no destination, no plan beyond putting as much distance as possible between herself and Blackridge before they decided exile wasn't punishment enough. By midday, she was hopelessly lost. The forest had swallowed her completely. Every direction looked the same, dense trees, tangled undergrowth, shadows that moved when she wasn't looking directly at them. She tried to use the sun to navigate, but the canopy was too thick, letting through only scattered beams of light that shifted and changed as she walked. Her feet ached. The rejection wound had developed a feverish quality, hot and infected feeling. She hadn't eaten since yesterday morning, and her stomach cramped with hunger. This was how she would die. Not dramatically, not fighting, just slowly, stupidly, walking in circles until her body gave out. By evening, exhaustion forced her to stop. She found a fallen log and collapsed against it, pulling the thin blanket from her bag. The temperature was already dropping. Autumn nights in the frontier could kill just as effectively as predators. Kayla wrapped the blanket around herself and tried not to think about the packhouse's warm kitchen, the fire that was always burning, the smell of bread baking, the fact that for all her complaints, she'd never been truly cold or truly hungry. She was about to learn what both felt like. Night fell fast and absolute. The forest became a symphony of sounds, rustling leaves, snapping twigs, distant howls that made her skin crawl. Things were moving out there. Hunting. She was prey now, and every predator in range could probably smell her fear. Kayla closed her eyes and tried to sleep. Maybe if she was lucky, something would kill her quickly in the night. Better than freezing slowly or starving over days. She must have dozed because she woke to rain hammering the forest. Cold, relentless, soaking through her blanket and clothes in seconds. Thunder cracked overhead loud enough to shake the ground, and lightning illuminated the trees in brief, terrible flashes. She had to move. Staying here meant dying of exposure. Kayla stumbled to her feet, grabbed her bag, and started walking. She could barely see 3 feet ahead. The rain came down in sheets, turning the ground to mud that sucked at her boots. She slipped, caught herself on a tree trunk, kept going. Lightning flashed again, and in that brief illumination, she saw it. A structure. Small, half-collapsed, clearly abandoned, but definitely man-made. A cabin, ancient and falling apart, but with walls and most of a roof. Shelter. Kayla ran, slipped in the mud, went down hard on her knees, pushed herself up, kept running. The cabin looked like it might collapse if she breathed too hard, but anything was better than drowning in the storm. The door hung crooked on broken hinges. She shoved it open, the wood groaning in protest, and threw herself inside. The interior was dark and smelled of decay and animal. Rain leaked through holes in the roof, creating puddles on the dirt floor. But compared to outside, it was paradise. Kayla collapsed against the wall, shivering violently, and that's when she heard it, growling, low, threatening. Multiple voices. Her eyes adjusted slowly to the darkness, and she made out shapes in the corner. 3 of them. Wolves? No, not quite. Too thin, too desperate, fur-matted and patchy. Rogues. They'd been using this cabin as a den, and she'd just invaded their territory. This was it. This was how it ended. Not from the storm, not from exposure, but torn apart by rogues who were probably just as desperate and starving as she was. The largest one, a male with matted gray fur and a scarred muzzle, took a step forward. His lips pulled back, revealing yellow teeth. The other 2 flanked him, moving with the coordinated precision of wolves who'd hunted together before. Kayla had no weapon beyond her rusty knife, no strength left to run. And her wolf, her pathetic broken wolf, was too weak to even consider shifting. She was going to die. "Please," she heard herself say. The word came out small and broken. "I'm sorry. I didn't know anyone was here. I'll leave." The gray rogue took another step forward, claws clicking on the dirt floor. His eyes caught the lightning's flash through the doorway. Intelligent eyes, not mad with hunger yet, but close. And then something happened. Something Kayla didn't understand, couldn't explain, would spend weeks trying to comprehend. A feeling unfurled inside her chest, not from the place where the mate bond had been. That was still a raw, aching wound. This came from deeper, older. Like something that had been sleeping for a very long time was finally cracking one eye open to see what all the noise was about. The sensation was strange, a pressure building behind her ribs, warm and insistent. It pushed outward, and when Kayla opened her mouth, the word that came out was different, layered, powerful in a way her voice had never been before. "Stop!" The gray rogue stopped mid-step, his ears flattening against his skull. The other 2 froze, their aggressive postures melting into something that looked almost like submission. Kayla stared at them, heart pounding. What just happened? The pressure in her chest pulsed once more, then settled back into sleep. But its presence lingered like an echo. "I'm not going to hurt you," she said carefully, her voice normal again. "I just need shelter from the storm. Can we share the space, just for tonight?" The rogues looked at each other. Some kind of silent communication passed between them. Body language Kayla couldn't read. Then, slowly, the gray male backed up. Not fleeing, not submitting entirely. Just allowing. The 3 of them retreated to their corner, watchful but no longer hostile. Kayla didn't move for a long time. She sat against the wall, shivering in her wet clothes, trying to process what had just happened. That feeling in her chest. What was it? She'd never felt anything like it before. It certainly wasn't her wolf. Her wolf was weak, barely present even when she did manage to shift. This had been something else entirely. Outside, the storm raged on. Inside, an uneasy truce settled over the cabin's occupants. Kayla watched the rogues, and they watched her back, and nobody moved. Eventually, exhaustion won. Her eyes drifted closed, and despite everything, the danger, the cold, the pain, sleep dragged her under. When she woke, everything had changed. Dawn came with silence. Kayla's eyes opened to gray light filtering through the cabin's broken roof, each breath a reminder that she was still alive. Though for how much longer, she couldn't say. Her body ached in places she didn't know could ache, muscles stiff from sleeping on dirt, clothes still damp and cold against her skin, and the rejection wound, that burning, festering hole in her chest where the mate bond used to be, pulsed with a heat that had nothing to do with warmth. For a moment, disoriented and feverish, she couldn't remember where she was or how she'd gotten here. Then she saw them. 3 sets of eyes watching her from the corner. The rogues. Storm, she'd started calling the gray male in her head, though she hadn't said the name aloud yet. The brown female with the ruined tail, the young one with burns scarring his shoulder. They hadn't moved during the night, hadn't attacked while she was vulnerable. Just watched. Waited. Kayla sat up slowly, biting back a groan as her spine protested. Everything hurt. The fever made her skin feel too tight, like she was being cooked from the inside out. She'd read about rejection sickness in the pack library during long afternoons when she'd hidden from her duties. Most wolves survived if they accepted quickly and had pack support to heal. She'd had neither advantage. The book said untreated rejection wounds could fester for weeks before the body finally gave up. Some wolves went mad from the pain. Others just faded quietly, their hearts forgetting how to beat without the bond's rhythm. Kayla was somewhere between the two and sinking fast. Storm tilted his head, studying her with an intensity that was almost unsettling. In the morning light, she could see just how bad his condition was, ribs showing through patchy gray fur, a wound on his front left leg that was infected, red and swollen, weeping pus that stained his fur, the kind of injury that would kill slowly if left untreated. The brown female wasn't much better. Missing the bottom half of her tail, the stump a mass of old scar tissue that looked like it had been chewed off rather than cut clean. Her coat was dull, matted in places where she couldn't reach to groom properly. And the juvenile, barely old enough to survive on his own, had burns along his right shoulder and neck, recent, still raw, and weeping. The kind of injuries that came from fire, from being too close to flames, or Kayla's stomach turned, from someone deliberately burning him. Outcasts, broken, abandoned to die in the frontier because they were too weak, too damaged, too inconvenient to keep. Just like her. "You should go," Kayla said. Her voice came out rough, scratchy from disuse and fever. "Find better shelter than this, better hunting grounds. There's nothing for you here, I can't—" She coughed, tasting copper. "I can't help you." Storm made a sound low in his throat. Not quite a whine, not quite a growl. Something between the two that conveyed frustration and determination in equal measure. He stood, favoring his injured leg badly, and limped toward her. Every instinct Kayla had screamed to press herself against the wall, to make herself smaller, to show submission to a wolf who outweighed her by at least 40 pounds and could kill her in seconds if he wanted to. But that strange feeling from last night, the one that had made the rogue stop mid-attack, pulsed once in her chest. Faint. Barely there, but present. And suddenly, impossibly, she wasn't afraid. Storm stopped 3 feet away, lowered his massive gray head, and then, with careful deliberation, placed something on the ground between them. A rabbit, freshly killed, still warm, blood matting the fur around its neck where Storm had broken it quickly and cleanly. Kayla stared at the offering, her mind struggling to process what she was seeing. You need this more than I do," her voice cracked. "You're starving, all of you are. I can't take your food." But Storm stepped back, positioning himself beside the brown female and the juvenile. All 3 of them watching her with an expectation she didn't understand. They were waiting for her to accept, to eat, to take what they'd offered, like Pack would. But Kayla wasn't Pack. Not anymore. She was nothing. Nobody. An exiled Omega with a rejection wound that was killing her and a broken wolf that could barely shift. Why would they share with her? "Thank you," she whispered, because refusing felt wrong somehow. Insulting, like spitting on a kindness she'd never expected to receive. I'll share it. With all of us." Storm's ears perked forward. The brown female made a soft chuffing sound that might have been approval. Kayla had no proper tools for preparing meat. The rusty knife she'd found years ago was barely sharp enough to cut rope, let alone skin a rabbit efficiently. But she managed, her hand shaking from fever and inexperience. Made a mess of it, wasted probably half the meat through clumsy cuts and torn flesh. The rogues didn't seem to care. She built a fire using techniques she'd learned from watching the pack's hunters, striking her knife against a piece of flint she found near the cabin's broken fireplace, coaxing sparks into a nest of dry moss and twigs. It took forever. Her hands were shaking too badly to be precise, but eventually, blessedly, flames caught and spread. The smell of cooking meat filled the cabin, and Kayla's stomach cramped so violently she nearly doubled over. When had she last eaten? The day before the rejection ceremony, maybe. 2 days ago. Time was getting fuzzy. She cooked the rabbit over the flames, turning it awkwardly, watching the skin char and split, probably burning the outside while leaving the inside raw. Her mother, the fragments of memory she had, would have been ashamed at the waste, but it was food, hot and real and hers. When it was done, or as done as she could manage, Kayla divided the meat into 4 portions. The rogues immediately made sounds of protest. Storm growled low, shaking his head. The brown female backed up, refusing her share. They'd given her the whole rabbit, expected her to eat it all, to take everything while they got nothing. No, Kayla said firmly. Her voice was stronger now, fed by something she couldn't name. If we're sharing this shelter, we share the food too. I'm not... She swallowed hard. I can't be in charge here. I'm nobody. Nothing. But I won't take everything while you starve. Storm looked at the brown female. Some kind of silent communication passed between them. Body language Kayla couldn't fully read but understood the essence of. A decision being made. Then slowly, Storm approached and took his portion. The brown female followed. Even the juvenile, after a moment's hesitation, accepted his share. They ate slowly, carefully, like they were afraid the food might disappear if they rushed, like they couldn't quite believe it was real. Kayla ate her portion and felt the gnawing emptiness in her stomach ease. Not full, not even close, but the sharp, desperate edge of hunger had dulled to something manageable. For the first time in days, she felt almost human again. I should give you proper names, she said quietly, more to herself than to them. Can't keep thinking of you as that one, and the gray one, and the young one. Storm's ears swiveled toward her, alert and focused. Storm, Kayla said, meeting his eyes. Because you look like you've weathered more than a few, and you're still standing. She turned to the brown female, whose eyes caught the firelight in shades of amber and gold. Ember, for the fire in your eyes. And finally the juvenile, his burns catching the light. Ash, because you rose from fire and survived. They didn't react the way domestic dogs might. No wagging tails or excited yips. They were wolves. Wild, dangerous despite their injuries. But Storm's tail moved once. A single deliberate sweep. And the way all 3 of them looked at her had changed somehow. Recognition. Acceptance. Maybe even belonging. The days blurred together after that, marked only by the rising and setting of the sun through the cabin's broken roof. Kayla focused on survival because thinking about anything else, the rejection, the exile, Darius's cold eyes as he destroyed her, led to a darkness she couldn't afford to fall into. Not yet. Not when 3 rogues were depending on her for reasons she still didn't fully understand. The cabin became a project, something to occupy her hands and mind while her body slowly failed. She patched the worst holes in the roof using branches she dragged from the forest, weaving them together with strips of bark and filling the gaps with mud from the stream she'd found a quarter-mile south. The work was exhausting. Her muscles screamed. The rejection wound flared with every movement. But when the next rain came, a light drizzle, rather than the violent storm that had driven her here, most of it stayed outside. Progress. She cleared the debris from the floor, broken pottery from whoever had lived here decades ago, animal bones, piles of rotting leaves. The place smelled better after, though better was relative when you were living in an abandoned frontier cabin with 3 wolves. Storm watched her work with that intense focus he seemed to apply to everything. When she struggled to move a particularly heavy log, He was there, gripping it in his jaws and dragging it where she needed it. When she tried to reach a high hole in the roof and nearly fell, Ember positioned herself beneath like a living safety net. They were helping, participating, acting less like wild rogues and more like pack. The thought made Kayla's chest ache in ways that had nothing to do with the rejection wound. She'd never had pack. Not really. Blackridge had been a collection of wolves who tolerated her existence while making it clear she didn't belong. But these three broken outcasts working together to build something resembling shelter, felt different, felt real. Storm's leg was getting worse despite the infection, or maybe because of it. Kayla had watched the pack healers work often enough, had fetched their supplies, ground their herbs, held down injured wolves while they worked, but she'd never been taught the actual healing. Omegas weren't worth teaching. Still, she remembered some things. Yarrow for bleeding, plantain for infection, comfrey for broken bones, though she wasn't sure if Storm's leg was broken or just badly injured. She found the plants growing near the stream, small mercies in a frontier that seemed designed to kill anything weak or unlucky. Boiled water in a dented pot she'd found buried in the cabin's debris. Made a poultice that probably wouldn't work but might at least not make things worse. Storm tolerated her ministrations with stoic patience. Didn't growl when she touched the infected wound, even though it clearly hurt. Didn't pull away when she cleaned it with boiled water that must have stung like fire. Just stood there, trembling slightly, trusting her not to cause unnecessary pain. "I don't know what I'm doing," Kayla admitted as she wrapped the wound with strips torn from her spare shirt. The fabric was worn thin, but it was clean. "This might not help. It might make it worse. I'm not a healer. I'm just—" Storm turned his head and licked her hand. Once, deliberately. Kayla's vision blurred. "You shouldn't trust me. I'm nobody. Nothing. I can't even keep myself alive." But Storm just looked at her with those intelligent eyes, and Kayla understood. He'd chosen to trust her anyway. They all had. For reasons she couldn't comprehend, these rogues saw something in her that her own pack never had. 2 days later, the swelling in Storm's leg had gone down. The angry red of infection was fading to pink. He could put weight on it without limping as badly. It was working. Kayla moved on to Ember's tail. The stump was old, long-healed, but the scarring was ragged and uneven. It caught on things. Got infected when it rubbed raw. Kayla couldn't make it grow back, but she could clean it properly, trim the worst of the ragged edges with her rusty knife, make it less likely to cause problems. Ember submitted to the treatment with remarkable calm, though her muscles stayed tense throughout. When it was done, she pressed against Kayla's side, warm and solid and grateful. Ash's burns needed constant care. The wounds were still fresh, weeping and raw. Kayla changed the bandages daily, applied salve made from calendula and comfrey, kept them covered and clean. The juvenile bore it all without complaint, though she saw pain flicker in his eyes every time she touched the burned flesh. "Who did this to you?" she asked one night, carefully applying fresh salve. "Who would burn a wolf so young?" Ash couldn't answer, of course. But Storm made a sound, low and threatening, that spoke of violence and betrayal. Someone had hurt this juvenile deliberately, burned him and cast him out to die, just like Blackridge had done to her. The rogues were healing, slowly, imperfectly, but healing nonetheless. Kayla, however, was getting worse. The rejection wound wasn't closing. By all logic, all the information she'd read in those stolen hours in the pack library, it should have started healing by now. The acute pain should have faded to a dull ache. The fever should have broken. Instead, it burned hotter each day. Kayla woke in the morning soaked in sweat despite the autumn cold. Her hands shook constantly, making simple tasks like building the fire and exercise in frustration. Food tasted like ash and sat heavy in her stomach. Her sleep was fitful, plagued by nightmares of Darius's cold eyes and Cornelius's condemning voice and the pack's laughter as she knelt in the dirt. She tried to hide it from the rogues, forced herself to eat when her stomach rebelled, smiled when Storm brought her offerings of meat, pretended the trembling in her hands was just cold, not her body slowly shutting down. But wolves noticed things, especially wolves who'd chosen to bind their survival to hers for reasons she still didn't understand. Storm started refusing to leave her side. He followed her everywhere, to the stream for water, into the forest for firewood, even just to the corner of the cabin when she needed privacy. He slept pressed against her back, his warmth the only thing that kept the fever chills at bay. Ember watched her with worried eyes, bringing her the choicest pieces of their hunts, even though Kayla tried to refuse. Ash, young as he was, seemed to sense her decline. He'd curl up at her feet, a small, warm weight that anchored her when the fever made the world swim. On the 8th night, Kayla woke to Storm pacing the cabin, whining low in his throat. Ember was at the door, hackles raised. Ash pressed against Kayla's side, trembling. Something was wrong. Kayla forced herself upright, the world tilting dangerously. What is it? Then she heard them. Voices. Multiple someones approaching through the forest. Human voices speaking in low tones that carried through the night air. Told you I smelled smoke. Someone's using the old trapper's cabin. Could be rogues using it as a den. Could be exiles. Either way, they're technically on Blackridge's shit list if they're this close to the border. No, please, no. Kayla's blood went cold. She recognized one of those voices. Marcus Blackridge, the Alpha's son, the one who'd laughed loudest when she knelt in the dirt accepting Darius's rejection. Let's check it out, another voice said. Riker Stone, she thought, one of Cornelius's enforcers, newly mated and eager to prove himself. If it's rogues, we're supposed to eliminate them anyway. Can't have them thinking they can den this close to pack lands. And if it's the cursed Omega? Marcus laughed. Then we make sure she understands that exile is permanent. No crawling back, no begging for mercy. She's dead to Blackridge. The door rattled, someone testing it, pushing. Hide, Kayla hissed at the rogues. Please, they'll kill you if they find you here. Storm planted himself in front of her, hackles raised, a growl building in his chest that promised violence. Ember and Ash flanked him, all three taking defensive positions between Kayla and the door. They weren't going to hide, weren't going to run, they were going to fight, for her. The door crashed open, wood splintering under the force. 5 wolves in human form crowded into the cabin, and Kayla's heart sank straight through the floor. Marcus Blackridge stood at the front, golden hair gleaming in the firelight, dressed in hunting leathers with a silver-edged knife at his belt. Behind him were 4-pack enforcers, Riker Stone, 2 others she vaguely recognized, and one she'd never seen before. All armed, all dangerous. They froze when they saw Kayla kneeling on the floor, fever-flushed and trembling, with 3 rogues positioned protectively around her. The silence stretched for 3 heartbeats. Then Marcus started laughing. Well, he drawled, that cruel smile spreading across his handsome face. The cursed Omega actually survived. Color me impressed. I owe Darius 5 silver pieces. He bet you'd be dead within 3 days of exile. Kayla pushed herself to her feet. Her legs shook violently, threatening to collapse, but she locked her knees and stood her ground. Get out. Get out? Marcus's laugh got louder. Oh, that's rich. You're squatting in a cabin that's technically still within Blackridge's extended territory. And you've got rogues. Filthy, mangy rogues. Do you know what we do to rogues who den this close to our borders? They're not hurting anyone, Kayla said. Her voice was weak, but she forced the words out. They're just trying to survive. Like me. Trying to survive? Riker stepped forward, his hand on his knife. They're vermin. Diseased, dangerous vermin. And you're harboring them, which makes you complicit. That's a kill-on-sight offense according to frontier law. We're beyond the border stones, Kayla said desperately. You have no authority here, no right to— We have whatever authority we decide we have, Marcus interrupted. The frontier is lawless. That means the strong make the rules. And right now, we're the strong ones. His eyes raked over her, taking in the fever flush, the trembling, the way she could barely stand. You, on the other hand, look like death warmed over. That rejection really did a number on you, didn't it? Leave her alone, one of the other enforcers said, but he didn't sound convinced, just uncomfortable. Oh, relax, we're not here to kill her. Yet. Marcus circled closer and Storm's growl intensified. We're here because my father wanted to make absolutely sure she understood the terms of her exile. No coming back, no begging for mercy, no hoping Darius will change his mind and take her back. She's dead to Blackridge. Forever. I understand, Kayla said through gritted teeth. I have no intention of ever coming back. Good. Glad we're clear on that. Marcus's smile turned uglier. But there's still the matter of your little rogue friends here. Can't have them thinking they can set up a den this close to our territory. Sets a bad precedent, you know. They're not hurting anyone. They're breathing, Riker cut in. That's enough. Rogues near Packlands get eliminated. It's policy. He moved fast. One moment standing still, the next lunging toward Storm with his silver knife raised high. Storm tried to dodge, but his injured leg made him slow, clumsy. The blade caught him across the shoulder, silver burning through fur and flesh with a sickening hiss. Storm yelped, a sound of pain and surprise that cut straight through Kayla's chest. Something inside her snapped. Not broke. Not shattered. Not the way the rejection bond had torn apart in slow, agonizing pieces. This was different. This was a chain that had been holding something back. Something massive and ancient and furious. And it had finally, catastrophically, failed. The thing that had been sleeping in her chest since last night's confrontation with the rogues woke up. And it was angry. Stop. The word came out like a thunderclap. The cabin shook, walls rattling, roof debris raining down. The fire in the pit flared white-hot, flames shooting 3 feet into the air. And every wolf in the room, Blackridge enforcers and rogues alike, dropped to their knees like invisible hands had grabbed them and forced them down. Kayla stood in the center of it all, power radiating from her in waves that made the air shimmer. It felt like her skin was on fire, like her bones were reshaping themselves, like something massive was trying to claw its way out of her chest, and the only thing stopping it was a barrier that was cracking with every heartbeat. "What the fuck?" Marcus gasped, fighting against the pressure. His face had gone pale, sweat beading on his forehead despite the cold. "What are you—" The power pulsed again. Stronger this time. The cabin groaned, boards creaking under the strain. Kayla could feel it responding to her anger, her fear, her desperate need to protect the only beings who'd shown her kindness in this cruel world. It wanted out, wanted to be used, wanted to show these wolves what happened when you hurt what was hers. But there was something else there too. A seal, old and complex and weakening, but still intact, still holding. Not yet. Something whispered in the back of her mind. A memory that wasn't hers. Her mother's voice, maybe. Not ready. Too soon. The seal must break naturally or it will kill you. The pressure vanished as suddenly as it had appeared. The wolves collapsed forward onto their hands and knees, gasping for air. Kayla swayed, her vision graying at the edges. The fever spiked viciously, and she tasted blood coating her tongue. Whatever that power was, using it had cost her. Burned through reserves she didn't have. "You—" Marcus pushed himself up on shaking arms, staring at her with wide, terrified eyes. "What the hell are you?" "I don't know," Kayla whispered, and it was the absolute truth. "Marcus?" One of the enforcers, the one who'd looked uncomfortable earlier, grabbed his arm. "We need to go, now. Report this to Alpha Cornelius. She's just an Omega—" "That was not Omega power." The enforcer was already backing toward the broken door. "That was something else, something wrong, something I've never felt before, and I've been around alphas my whole life." "He's right," another enforcer said, his voice shaking. "That wasn't normal, wasn't natural. There's something wrong with her. Cursed, maybe. Or worse." Marcus looked between his men and Kayla. Pride warred with survival instinct in his expression. For a moment, Kayla thought pride would win, thought he'd attack anyway, just to prove he wasn't afraid. But then Storm dragged himself to his feet, blood dripping from his shoulder, and positioned himself in front of Kayla. Ember and Ash joined him, all 3 rogues forming a wall of fur and teeth despite their injuries. And Kayla felt that power pulse once more in her chest. Weak, barely there, but present enough to be a promise of what would happen if they pushed. Survival won. "This isn't over," Marcus spat. He pulled himself fully upright, trying to salvage some dignity. "My father will want to know what you are, what that power was. And when he finds out—" His smile returned, ugly and full of promise. "He'll send more than just 5 wolves next time. He'll send an army, and whatever you are, cursed Omega, you won't survive that." "Get out," Kayla said. Her voice was barely audible, but the cabin shook again slightly, just enough to make the wolves flinch. They left. Practically ran into the forest, stumbling over roots and each other in their haste to put distance between themselves and whatever Kayla had become. The moment they were gone, Kayla's legs gave out. She collapsed hard, her head cracking against the dirt floor. Storm was at her side immediately, whining high and desperate. Ember pressed against her other side, warm and solid. Ash licked her face, trying to keep her conscious. "I'm okay," Kayla managed. But she wasn't. The fever was a wildfire now, consuming her from the inside out. That power, whatever it had been, had used up the last of her strength. She could feel her body shutting down, organs failing, heart forgetting its rhythm. She was dying. Tonight. Maybe in the next hour. Storm made a decision. He threw back his head and howled, a long, mournful sound that echoed through the forest and beyond. A call for help that probably no one would answer, because who helped exiled Omegas and broken rogues in the frontier? But someone did answer. Footsteps approached the cabin. Not running, not sneaking, just walking with measured, confident strides, like the owner had every right to be there. Like the frontier and its dangers were inconveniences rather than threats. A man appeared in the doorway, tall, easily over 6 feet, broad-shouldered with the build of a warrior who'd seen real combat. Dark hair that fell to his collar, slightly disheveled like he'd been traveling hard. And eyes that caught the firelight with a golden sheen that marked him as more than human, more than ordinary wolf. Alpha eyes. But not Blackridge. The power rolling off him was different, older, stronger. The kind of power that made Storm, Ember, and Ash immediately lower their heads in submission. Not from fear, but from recognition of something greater. "Well," the stranger said, his voice deep and smooth with an accent Kayla couldn't place. That was quite the display of power for someone who's supposed to be a broken Omega. He stepped into the cabin, moving with a predator's grace that was somehow elegant rather than threatening. When he crouched beside Kayla, close enough that she could see the gold flecks in his dark eyes, close enough to feel the power radiating from him in waves, her broken wolf whimpered, not in fear, in recognition. "Who are you?" Kayla managed through cracked lips. The stranger studied her face for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then he smiled, and it was sad and knowing and full of something that might have been grief. "My name is Kyle Nightshade," he said, "Alpha King of the Northern Realm, commander of the Winter Guard, and I've been looking for you, Kayla Vire, for a very long time." "That's not my name anymore," Kayla whispered. "Exile. No pack. No name." "No," Kyle agreed softly. His gaze moved over her, assessing the fever flush, the trembling, the rejection wound that was visible even through her shirt as a dark, infected mass. "It never really was your name, was it? Names can be lies. Identities can be buried, but power—" He placed his hand over her chest, right where the rejection wound burned hottest. "Power remembers what it is, even when everything else has been sealed away." His hand was warm, almost hot. The rejection wound's burn intensified for a moment, sharp enough to make Kayla gasp, then suddenly, impossibly, eased, not healed. She could still feel it there, still feel the emptiness where Darius had been. But the infection, the fever, the immediate threat of death, all of it stabilized, pulled back from the edge. "I don't understand," Kayla said. "You will." Kale settled more comfortably on the ground, seemingly unbothered by the dirt and the 3 rogues watching him with wary eyes. "Your mother did incredible work hiding you. The seal she placed was masterful, complex, the kind of magic that takes decades to perfect and kills most who attempt it. It fooled everyone for 18 years. "My mother?" Kayla's voice cracked. "She died when I was 6, fever. She was nobody, a packless wolf who Blackridge took in out of charity." "Is that what they told you?" Kale's laugh was bitter. Elena Stormborn was many things, but nobody wasn't one of them. She was the sister of King Theron Nightshade, royal blood, one of the most powerful healers the Northern Realm had produced in generations. And when assassins came for the royal family, she grabbed you, barely a year old, and ran. The words didn't make sense. Couldn't make sense. "I'm not—" Kayla shook her head, immediately regretted it as the world spun. "I'm Omega. Broken. Cursed. I can't even shift properly. There's no way I'm—" "You're what the seal made you appear to be," Kyle interrupted gently. Your mother bound your wolf, your power, everything that would identify you as royal blood. She made you seem weak, defective, the kind of wolf that would be overlooked, dismissed, forgotten. Safe, in other words. Safe? Kayla's laugh came out broken. I've been tortured my whole life, beaten, starved, worked to exhaustion, rejected by my mate, and exiled to die. That's not safe. It's safer than being hunted by the wolves who murdered your parents and took the northern throne by force, Kale said quietly. Elena knew what she was doing. Better you suffer as an Omega than die screaming as a princess. This doesn't make sense. If any of this were true, why are you here now? Why find me after 18 years? Because the seal is breaking. Kale's eyes were intense, holding hers. It was always going to break eventually. Your mother designed it that way. But she expected it to happen gradually, naturally, around your 20th or 21st year when your power would be mature enough to handle the transition. Then why is it breaking now? Rejection trauma, severe emotional distress, mortal danger, near-death experiences. Kale gestured to her, to the wound, to the fever. You've experienced all of that in the last week. The seal was designed to protect you, but it's also tied to your emotional state. When you're threatened, when you're hurt badly enough, it cracks to let power through, to help you survive. That thing I did to Marcus and his wolves was maybe 1% of what's locked inside you. Kale's expression was serious. When that seal finally breaks completely, when all of your power is released, he paused. You'll be the strongest alpha the wolf world has seen in 3 generations, maybe longer. I'm not an alpha. I'm Omega. You're what 18 years of sealing made you believe you are. But I can feel your real wolf underneath Kayla, fighting to emerge. She's not small. She's not weak. She's been caged since you were an infant, and she's very, very angry about it. Kayla wanted to argue, to call him insane, to reject everything he was saying because accepting it meant her entire life had been a lie. But that thing in her chest, the power that had made 5 armed wolves drop to their knees, pulsed in agreement. And deep down, in a place she'd never let herself acknowledge, she knew Kyle was telling the truth. The rogues knew, Kyle said, glancing at Storm. Wolves can sense true power even when it's buried. That's why they followed you instead of running, why they submit to you, why they brought you food and protected you despite barely knowing you. They're waiting for you to wake up and claim them properly as your pack. Storm's tail moved once. Confirmation. I can't claim anyone, Kayla said desperately. Look at me. I'm dying from rejection sickness. Whatever power might be buried inside me doesn't matter if I'm dead. The rejection is destabilizing the seal, yes, making you sick, but it's also accelerating the breaking process. Kael's hand was still on her chest, and she could feel power flowing from him, stabilizing, supporting, keeping her alive through force of will. I can help stabilize you long enough for the seal to break naturally instead of catastrophically. But you need to understand something, Kayla. When it breaks, and it will break, probably within the next few days, everything changes. You won't be this person anymore. You'll be who you were always meant to be. Biski. And who is that? The daughter of a murdered king, the last legitimate heir to the northern throne, the alpha who could burn the entire wolf world to ash if she chose to. Kale's smile was dangerous and full of dark promise. The Northern Realm has been without its royal family for 18 years. Usurpers hold the throne. Your parents' killers walk free, celebrated as heroes. And you, little Omega, who was never an Omega at all, are the only one with the blood right to take it all back. I don't want a throne, Kayla said. Her voice was small, broken. I just want to survive, to not hurt anymore, to have somewhere I belong. I know, Kale's expression softened. And I'm not here to force you into anything. The Northern Realm, the throne, revenge against those who killed your family, those are choices you can make later. When you're ready, if you're ever ready, then what do you want? I want to keep you alive long enough to make those choices. He stood smoothly, offering her his hand. I have a camp about 2 miles north of here. Warm fires, medicine, food that's actually cooked properly, and healers who can help manage the seal-breaking process so it doesn't kill you. And if I say no? Kale's expression turned grim. Then I leave you here to die slowly from rejection sickness, while Blackridge sends stronger wolves to finish what Marcus started. because he is absolutely going to tell his father what he saw tonight, and Cornelius will see you as a threat. They'll come back, probably within the next day or two, and next time it won't be 5 wolves. It'll be 20, maybe more, with silver weapons and orders to eliminate you. Kayla looked at her rogues, at Storm with his wounded shoulder, fresh blood matting his fur, at Ember and Ash watching her with complete trust in their eyes. What about them? They come with us, obviously. Kale said it like it was the most natural thing in the world. They're yours, aren't they? Your first pack. Your first choice as an alpha, even if you don't recognize it yet. His smile was genuine this time. I'm not here to take anything from you, Kayla. I'm here to help you reclaim what was stolen. And that includes your right to choose your own pack. The rejection wound pulsed, hot and infected. The fever made her thoughts swim. But underneath it all, that sealed power hummed with something that felt like anticipation. Like it had been waiting for this moment, for someone to finally tell her the truth about what she was. If I go with you, Kayla said slowly, forcing the words through lips that didn't want to cooperate, and this is all wrong. If you're lying or mistaken or insane, then you're exactly where you'd be if you stayed here, dying in the frontier with 3 rogues and no future. Kael's expression was serious, honest. But I'm not wrong, and I'm not lying. I watched your mother flee the Northern Realm with you in her arms. Watched her use the last of her power to seal you before the blood loss from childbirth killed her. Yes, she died giving birth to you, not from fever. That was the story she spread to hide the truth. I swore an oath to your uncle, King Theron, that I would find you when the time was right, when you were strong enough to survive the truth. Why now? Why not 5 years ago? 10 years ago? Why let me suffer if you knew where I was? Because forcing the seal to break before you were ready would have killed you. Kale's voice was gentle but firm. The magic your mother used was tied to your growth, your maturity, your power's natural development. Breaking it too early would have been like ripping a butterfly from its cocoon. You'd have died before you could spread your wings. But rejection, exile, trauma, those are cracking it from the inside. You're doing it yourself, at your own pace. You're ready now, or you will be very soon. Storm made a sound, half whine, half question, asking her what she wanted to do. Kayla looked at the 3 rogues who'd chosen to stay with a broken Omega instead of finding stronger wolves to follow. They trusted her, believed in something she couldn't see in herself. Maybe it was time to find out why. Maybe it was time to stop being the Omega everyone told her she was and start becoming whatever she was supposed to be. Okay, she said. The word came out barely above a whisper. I'll come with you. We'll come with you. Kale's smile was warm, real. Good. Can you walk? I think so. She tried to stand and immediately collapsed. Kale caught her before she hit the ground, his arms strong and steady. Or I can carry you, he said with dry amusement. No shame in accepting help, princess. Don't call me that. Not yet, maybe, but you will be. He lifted her easily, like she weighed nothing. Storm pressed close to her side, supporting what Kael couldn't reach. There's a camp 2 miles north. My wolves are waiting. We'll get you warm, get medicine for that fever, and start the process of safely breaking that seal without killing you. And then Kayla Stormborn, yes, that's your real name, the one your mother gave you before she sealed it away. We teach you how to be what you were born to be. Kael's eyes gleamed in the darkness. An Alpha King's daughter, a force of nature that makes lesser wolves kneel. The Omega who was never an Omega at all, just a sleeping dragon waiting for the right moment to wake up and burn everything that hurt her to the ground. They left the cabin as the first hints of dawn touched the eastern sky. Kayla didn't look back. There was nothing there worth seeing anymore, just a half-collapsed shelter where she'd learned that sometimes the outcasts and broken things knew your worth better than blood ever could. Storm, Ember, and Ash followed close, their presence steady and sure despite their injuries. And somewhere deep in Kayla's chest, beneath the rejection wound and the seal and 18 years of carefully constructed lies, something ancient and powerful stirred in its sleep. Not awake yet. The seal still held, though cracks were spreading through it like fault lines before an earthquake. But soon, very soon. The Omega they'd tried to destroy was about to become the Alpha they should have feared from the beginning. And when she rose from the ashes of rejection and Etzel, the wolves who'd cast her out would learn what it meant to underestimate a Stormborn. The camp materialized from the forest like something out of a fever dream. One moment Kayla was staring at endless trees and darkness, her body limp in Kael's arms, consciousness flickering like a candle in wind. The next, they'd crossed some invisible threshold, and suddenly there were tents, massive structures made of treated hide and reinforced canvas that could withstand frontier winters. Fires burned in carefully constructed pits. Wolves moved between the structures with military precision, all of them armed, all of them radiating the kind of power that marked them as elite fighters. This wasn't a temporary camp. This was a forward operating base. "How long have you been here, Seet?" Kayla managed through chattering teeth. 3 weeks, Kael said. He carried her toward the largest tent at the camp's center. "We've been tracking Blackridge's movements, waiting for the right moment." "Waiting for me?" Yes. Storm, Ember, and Ash followed close, but Kayla noticed how the northern wolves reacted to them. Hands drifting toward weapons, eyes narrowing. The tension was immediate and obvious. "Stand down," Kael's voice cracked like a whip. "The rogues are under my protection. Anyone who threatens them answers to me personally." The northern wolves backed off, but the wariness remained. Rogues weren't trusted anywhere, and 3 injured strays following an exiled Omega probably looked like a liability at best, a threat at worst. Kael pushed through the tent's entrance. The interior was warm, blessedly, impossibly warm after days of freezing in that broken cabin. Furs covered the ground. A brazier burned in the center, giving off heat without smoke through some mechanism Kayla's fever-addled brain couldn't comprehend. And standing near a folding table covered in maps and papers was a woman who made Kayla's broken wolf whimper in recognition of superior power. She was tall, nearly 6 feet, with silver hair that marked her as either very old or very powerful, probably both. Her eyes were the pale blue of winter ice, and when they landed on Kayla, they saw everything: the rejection wound, the fever, the seal cracking beneath her skin. "So this is the lost princess," the woman said. Her voice was cool, assessing. "She looks half dead." "She is half dead," Kael said bluntly. He lowered Kayla onto a pile of furs near the brazier. Rejection wound, untreated infection, fever approaching critical levels, and a seal that's breaking badly. "We need to stabilize her before it ruptures completely, or she won't survive the transition." The woman moved closer, and Kayla got her first good look at the scars covering her hands. Old burns, silver scars. The marks of someone who'd fought and survived things that should have killed her. "I'm Vera Frostborn," the woman said. "Master healer of the Northern Realm and the wolf who delivered you 18 years ago when your mother was dying from childbirth complications." She knelt beside Kyla, her hands already moving in practiced assessment. "You look like your father. Same bone structure, same stubborn jaw. But you have Elena's eyes. Poor thing probably thought hiding you would save you. Instead, she just delayed the inevitable." "Can you help her?" Kael asked. Vera's expression was grim. "Maybe. The rejection wound is infected badly. Another day and it would have killed her outright. The seal is fracturing in at least 7 places I can feel, probably more deeper down, and her body is fighting itself, trying to reconcile what it's been forced to be with what it actually is." She looked at Kael. "This is going to be unpleasant, for everyone involved." "Define unpleasant. The seal has to break. There's no stopping that now. But we can control how it breaks. Make it gradual instead of explosive." Vera pulled supplies from a nearby chest. Herbs Kayla didn't recognize, vials of liquid that glowed faintly in the firelight, silver instruments that made her wolf recoil. "It'll take 3 days, maybe 4. She'll be in agony for most of it. She might lose her mind temporarily when the suppressed memories come back, and there's about a 30% chance her heart will just stop when her wolf fully emerges." "Bum. 30%, Kayla repeated. Her voice sounded distant to her own ears. "You want me to lie and say better odds?" Vera's tone was sharp but not unkind. "Your mother sealed an alpha wolf into an Omega's body when you were barely a year old. That kind of magic doesn't come undone gently. Be grateful you've got me here instead of some frontier hedge witch who'd kill you trying to help." Storm growled low, pressing against Kayla's side. Protective. Worried. It's okay, Kayla told him softly. She ran her hand through his fur, feeling the warmth, the solid reality of him. I trust her. She didn't, actually. Didn't trust anyone in this tent except maybe the 3 rogues who'd chosen her when she was nothing. But what choice did she have? Stay like this and die slowly? Or risk the breaking and maybe survive? Do it, she said to Vera. The healer nodded. Smart girl. Kael, I'll need your power to anchor her when things get bad. And someone get those rogues fed and treated. They're half-starved and one of them is bleeding. 2 northern wolves stepped forward, hesitantly. Storm's hackles rose. It's okay, Kayla said again, though her vision was blurring. Let them help, please. Storm looked at her for a long moment, then slowly allowed himself to be led away. Ember and Ash followed, all 3 casting backward glances that promised violence if anything happened to her. Loyal, Vera observed. Rare in rogues. They must sense what you really are under all that seal work. What am I really? Kayla asked. The question came out desperate, broken. Powerful, Vera said simply. She began mixing herbs in a small bowl, grinding them with practiced efficiency. Strong enough to make alphas twice your age submit. Dangerous enough that your parents' killers would slaughter entire packs to eliminate you if they knew you were alive. She met Kayla's eyes. Your mother died to hide you. Your father died fighting to give Elena time to run. Don't waste their sacrifice by dying now from something as mundane as rejection sickness. She pressed the bowl to Kayla's lips. The mixture tasted like earth and blood, and something bitter that made her gag. Drink it all, Vera commanded. It'll stabilize the fever and slow the seals breaking enough for me to work. Kayla drank, forced down the vile mixture while her stomach rebelled. The moment the last drop passed her lips, the world tilted. The fever didn't break. It transformed, became something molten and aware, flowing through her veins like liquid fire. The rejection wound flared white-hot, and Kayla screamed. Hold her down, Vera snapped. Kale's hands were on her shoulders, pinning her to the furs. His power flooded through the contact. Alpha dominance meant to force submission, to calm a wolf in distress. It would have worked on anyone else. It barely touched Kayla, because the seal was breaking. Really breaking this time. And the power pouring out of the cracks was older, stronger, more fundamental than anything Kael could project. Elena, you brilliant, terrifying woman, Vera muttered. She was working fast now, hands moving in patterns that left glowing trails in the air. Magic. Real magic, not just the instinctive power all wolves carried. You didn't just seal her wolf. You sealed her memories, her instincts, her very identity. No wonder she believed she was Omega. She couldn't remember being anything else. Images flashed through Kayla's mind. Not memories. She was too young when the seal was placed. But impressions. Feelings. Strong arms holding her. A man's laugh, deep and warm. My little Storm, a voice said. You'll shake the world one day. A woman's face, beautiful and exhausted, leaning over her. Forgive me, she whispered. This will hurt, but it's the only way to keep you safe. Then pain. Searing, absolute pain as something vital was ripped away and locked behind walls of magic. The memories are fragmenting the seal faster, Vera said. We need to speed this up or lose her completely. Kael, more power. Now. Kael's hands tightened. His power increased, pressing down like a physical weight. It still wasn't enough to contain what was emerging, but it helped. Gave Vera the stability she needed to work. The healer's hands were glowing now, silver light pouring from her palms as she traced symbols over Kayla's chest. I'm going to remove the seal's core binding. When I do, everything it was holding back will come out at once. Her wolf, her power, her true nature. It's going to be violent. How violent? Kael asked. The tent might not survive. Neither might some of the weaker wolves in camp. Vera didn't look up from her work. Clear everyone back at least 100 feet. This is going to be like watching a dam break. Kael jerked his head toward the tent entrance. The 2 northern wolves who'd remained as guards fled immediately. Just us then, Vera said. Her expression was grim. Kayla, listen to me. What comes next is going to feel like dying. Your body is going to try to shift and fail. Your mind is going to fracture under suppressed memories. You're going to want to give up, let go, Just make the pain stop. Don't. Fight through it. Your wolf is in there, and she's been waiting 18 years to be free. Let her out. I don't know how. Yes, you do. You've always known. The seal just made you forget. Vera's hands pressed directly over the rejection wound. When this breaks, reach for the power. Don't fight it. Don't fear it. Just take it and make it yours. Her hands flared brilliant silver. The seal shattered. Pain beyond description, beyond comprehension, beyond anything Kayla had ever imagined pain could be. It felt like every bone in her body was breaking simultaneously, like her skin was being peeled away in strips, like something massive was trying to claw its way out of her chest and didn't care what it destroyed in the process. She screamed. Distantly, she was aware of Kyle shouting something, of Vera's hands still working, still glowing, trying to guide the breaking into something survivable. But mostly there was just the pain and the power. So much power. It poured out of her in waves that made the air shimmer and crack. The brazier's flames shot 15 feet high. The tent's support poles groaned, wood splitting under pressure. Outside, wolves howled in alarm and submission as alpha power unlike anything most of them had ever felt washed over the camp. And inside Kayla, something was waking up. Her wolf. Not the small, broken, pathetic creature she'd forced into existence during those agonizing childhood shifts. This was something else entirely. Something that had been compressed and bound and sealed for 18 years, growing stronger in captivity, feeding on every humiliation and pain and moment of suffering. She was massive, powerful, furious, and she wanted out. "Let me out," the wolf growled in Kayla's mind. The voice was hers, but different, older, stronger. "Let me show them what we really are." Kayla's body convulsed. She could feel the shifts starting, bones reshaping, muscles tearing and reforming, fur trying to erupt through skin. But something was wrong. The rejection wound. It was still there, still infected, still a gaping hole where Darius had been. And her wolf couldn't fully emerge while that wound remained. "The bond!" Vera shouted over the chaos. "She's still connected to the rejection. It's blocking the shift." "Can you sever it?" Kyle demanded. "It's already severed. This is just the scar, but it's infected with silver. Someone used a silver blade during the rejection ceremony." Kayla remembered. Darius's knife at his belt, the way he'd touched it while speaking the words. She thought it was just decoration. He'd poisoned the rejection on purpose, to make sure it killed her slowly. Silver poisoning in a rejection wound, Vera's voice was tight. "That's a death sentence. Even if we break the seal successfully, the silver will kill her once her wolf fully emerges. It'll see the foreign magic as a threat and attack her own body trying to eliminate it." "Then remove it," Kyle snapped. "I can't. It's too deep, too integrated with the wound. Removing it would kill her just as surely as leaving it." "So she's dead either way?" Vera didn't answer. Didn't need to. Kayla felt her consciousness slipping. The pain was too much. The power too overwhelming. Maybe dying would be easier, quieter. At least it would stop hurting. "No," her wolf snarled. "We don't die. We don't quit. We survive." "How?" Kayla thought desperately. "There's silver in the wound. We can't heal it. Can't remove it. Can't—" "Then we burn it out." The wolf's presence surged forward, and suddenly Kayla understood what she meant. The power that was breaking free. It was pure, elemental, hot enough to burn away impurities. Hot enough to cauterize a wound from the inside. It would hurt worse than anything yet. It might kill her anyway. But it was a chance. Kayla reached for the power, stopped fighting it, stopped fearing it, just opened herself completely and let it pour through every cell, every nerve, every piece of her being. The power responded like it had been waiting for permission. It flooded through her body, concentrating on the rejection wound. Kayla felt it hit the silver poisoning and recoil, but she held it there, forced it to burn hotter, to consume the foreign magic even as it consumed her. The silver ignited. The pain that followed made everything before it seem gentle by comparison. Kayla's scream cut off mid-breath, her body arching off the furs. She could feel the silver burning away, molecule by molecule, but she could also feel her own flesh burning with it. "She's killing herself!" Vera shouted. "No," Kyle said. His voice was full of wonder and terror. "She's purging it. Look, the wound is closing." It was. Impossibly, The gaping hole in Kayla's chest where the mate bond had been ripped away was sealing. Not healing cleanly, it would scar, would always be a mark of what Darius had done, but closing enough to no longer be a death sentence. The silver burned away completely, consumed by power that was never meant to exist in an Omega's body. And with its destruction, the final barrier fell. Kayla's wolf surged forward. The shift, when it came, was nothing like the agonizing, incomplete transformations of her childhood. This was smooth, powerful, natural. Her bones reshaped themselves in seconds. Fur erupted across her skin in a wave of silver white. Her senses expanded, suddenly able to hear heartbeats 100 yards away, smell fear and blood and power. When the shift completed, Kayla stood on 4 legs for the first time in her life and felt right. She was huge, easily twice the size of Storm, maybe larger. Her fur was pale silver that seemed to glow faintly in the tent's firelight. And when she looked at her reflection in a polished shield hanging on the tent's wall, the eyes staring back were gold. Alpha gold. "This," her wolf said with deep satisfaction, "this is what we are." Vera was staring at her with something approaching awe. "She's enormous. I've never seen a female wolf that size." "She's royal blood," Kael said quietly. "The Stormborn line always bred large, strong. Her father was the biggest wolf in 3 kingdoms. Looks like she inherited it." Kayla shifted back to human, and this time it didn't hurt at all. The transformation flowed like water, natural and easy. She stood naked in the tent, steam rising from her skin, and felt powerful for the first time in her life. "How do you feel?" Vera asked. "Alive," Kayla said. Her voice was different too. Stronger. The voice of someone who expected to be heard. "Whole. Like I've been living underwater my entire life and finally broke the surface." "The seal is completely gone," Vera confirmed. She was still glowing faintly, her magic assessing the changes. "Your power is stabilized. The rejection wound is scarred but healed, and your wolf—" She shook her head. "Your wolf is magnificent, terrifying but magnificent." Someone burst into the tent. A northern wolf, young and panicked. "Alpha Kale! Blackridge forces approaching from the south." Multiple wolves, heavily armed. "They're—" He stopped, staring at Kayla. "What? Who? How many?" Kale demanded. "At least 30. Maybe more. They're moving fast, like they're hunting something." "They're hunting her," Kale said grimly. Marcus told his father what he saw. Cornelius must have mobilized immediately. 30 wolves, Kayla said. The number should have terrified her. 3 days ago, it would have. But now, standing here with power thrumming through her veins and her wolf finally free, she just felt calm. "What do we do?" "We fight," Kale said. "Or we run. Those are the only options. If we run, they'll follow. They'll hunt us through the frontier until they corner us somewhere we can't defend." Kayla moved to the tent's entrance, looking out at the camp. The northern wolves were arming themselves, forming defensive positions. They were skilled, well-trained, dangerous, but they were outnumbered. "We could hold them off," Vera said, though she sounded doubtful. "For a while. But 30 Blackridge wolves on their own territory, with the element of surprise, it'll be bloody." "Then we don't let them have surprise," Kayla said. An idea was forming. Reckless. Probably insane. But it was the only thing she could think of that didn't end with dead northern wolves. "We go to them." Kale turned to look at her. "What?" "They're hunting me. They want to see what I am, eliminate the threat I represent." Kayla met his eyes. "So I show them. I walk out there alone and let them see exactly what they tried to destroy. That's suicide." "Maybe. Or maybe it's the boldest thing I've ever done." Kayla smiled, and it felt foreign on her face. Confidence, power, choice. "I've spent 18 years being what everyone told me I was. Weak, broken, worthless. Maybe it's time I show them what I actually am." "An alpha who doesn't know how to use her power yet," Vera interjected. "You've had your wolf for all of 10 minutes. You can't fight 30 trained warriors." "I'm not planning to fight them. I'm planning to make them kneel." Silence fell over the tent. "You want to dominate an entire Blackridge war party?" Kael said slowly. "Without fighting. Alpha power is about more than physical strength. You taught me that, didn't you? When you made those wolves submit just by walking into my cabin." Kayla turned to face him fully. I felt what happened when the seal broke. The power that came out. It made your wolves howl from 100 yards away. Made them submit without even trying. If I can do that on accident, what happens if I do it on purpose? You might kill yourself trying, Kyle said bluntly. Projecting that much dominance when you're untrained could burn you out, stop your heart, shatter your mind. Or it could work. And if it does, Blackridge backs off. Realizes I'm not someone they can hunt. Kayla pulled on clothes someone had left near the furs. Simple pants and a shirt. Too large but functional. Either way, it ends tonight. No more running, no more hiding. Vera was studying her with calculating eyes. She's right about one thing. The Blackridge wolves are afraid. That's why they brought 30 instead of 5. They're terrified of what she might be. If she can leverage that fear, turn it into submission. She trailed off. It's still incredibly dangerous. Everything is dangerous, Kayla said. Staying was dangerous. Running was dangerous. At least this way I'm choosing the danger instead of having it chosen for me. Kale looked at her for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, he smiled. You really are Elena's daughter. She would have done exactly this. Walked into certain death because it was the boldest option available. He pulled a blade from his belt and offered it to her. Handle first. Take this. If things go wrong, if you need to fight. I won't, Kayla said, but she took the blade anyway. It was beautiful, silver steel with markings she didn't recognize etched along the blade. What are these symbols? Stormborn family crest. Your father's blade, actually. I've been carrying it for 18 years, waiting to give it to you. Kael's expression was soft. He'd be proud, terrified, but proud. Kayla tucked the blade into her belt. It felt right there, like it belonged. How long before they arrive? She asked the messenger who was still standing in the tent entrance, looking confused. 15 minutes, maybe less. Good, that's enough time. Kayla turned to Kael. Keep your wolves here. This is something I need to do alone. The rogues will want to come with you. I know, let them. They're mine, and I don't abandon what's mine. She started for the entrance, then paused. Kael, thank you for finding me, for keeping me alive long enough to wake up. Thank your mother, I just followed her instructions. He nodded to her. Go show Blackridge what happens when you corner a Stormborn. Kayla walked south through the forest with Storm, Ember, and Ash at her sides. The night was cold and clear, stars bright overhead. Her breath misted in the air. Everything felt sharper now, the crunch of leaves beneath her feet, the rustle of wind through branches, the distant sound of many wolves moving through the forest, coming for her. The rogues sensed her mood. They didn't try to stop her, didn't question her plan, just followed, silent and loyal, ready to fight beside her if it came to that. It won't, Kayla told herself. I won't let it. She could feel her power now, coiled beneath her skin like a living thing. It responded to her emotions, fear, anger, determination, and she was learning to shape it, direct it. The seal had done more than hide her wolf. It had hidden her instincts, her knowledge, things alphas knew without being taught, skills that came from bloodline and breeding. Now, with the seal gone, those instincts were flooding back. She knew how to project dominance, how to force submission, how to make lesser wolves kneel through sheer force of will. She'd just never tried it before. First time for everything, her wolf said dryly. The Blackridge wolves appeared through the trees like ghosts, 30 of them in human form, all armed with silver weapons. Cornelius Blackridge stood at their center, massive and scarred, radiating the cold authority of an alpha who'd ruled through fear for 40 years. Darius was beside him, and Marcus, and Riker, and dozens of others Kayla recognized from years of servitude, wolves who'd tormented her, beaten her, treated her like garbage. They all stopped when they saw her. The Omega lives, Cornelius said. His voice carried easily through the quiet forest. I'm almost impressed. Most wolves would have died from that rejection wound by now. I'm not most wolves, Kayla said. Her voice was steady, strong. So we've heard. Marcus tells me you displayed unusual power, forced 5 trained warriors to their knees without shifting. Cornelius's eyes narrowed. I'd like to see that trick again, before we kill you. You're not going to kill me. No? Cornelius smiled. It was an ugly expression. You're exiled, outcast, alone except for 3 mangy rogues. We have 30 wolves, all loyal, all armed with silver. What makes you think you're walking away from this? Because I'm giving you one chance to leave, Kayla said. Turn around. Go back to Blackridge. Forget I exist, and I'll let you live. The silence that followed was absolute. Then Cornelius started laughing, deep, genuine laughter that made several of his wolves join in. Let us live, he repeated. You, the cursed Omega we cast out, are threatening us. He took a step forward. I think that rejection wound damaged your mind, girl. You're nobody, nothing. You have no pack, no power, no— I am Kayla Stormborn, Kayla said, and her voice carried power that made the trees shake. Daughter of King Theron Nightshade and Princess Lyra Moonfell, heir to the Northern Realm, and I am done being what you told me I was. She let her power loose. Not all of it. That would have killed her. But enough. A wave of alpha dominance that crashed over the Blackridge wolves like a tsunami. They dropped. All of them. 30 wolves hitting the ground in submission, unable to resist the sheer weight of power pressing down on them. Cornelius fought it. She could see him struggling, his alpha nature rebelling against forced submission, but even he went down eventually, one knee hitting the dirt. Only Darius remained standing, but barely. He was shaking, sweat pouring down his face, fighting with everything he had to resist. Kayla walked forward until she stood directly in front of him. You rejected me because I was weak, she said quietly. Because I was Omega. Because I wasn't worth the Thornwood name. She leaned closer. How does it feel, Darius, knowing that the wolf you cast aside could break you without even trying? He gasped for air. You're not— This isn't possible. I was sealed. My mother hid my power to protect me from wolves who murdered my parents. You and your pack spent 18 years tormenting someone who could have destroyed you all if I'd known what I was. Kayla's smile was sharp. You should be grateful I'm merciful. My wolf wants to tear your throat out for what you did. But I'm not going to kill you, Darius. I'm just going to make sure you never forget this moment. She pressed her power down harder. Darius collapsed completely, both knees hitting the ground, head bowed in absolute submission. The mate bond scar flared once in Kayla's chest, a reminder of what he'd done, what he'd taken from her. But it didn't hurt anymore. The wound had healed. The bond was gone. And looking at him now, this wolf who'd seemed so powerful, so untouchable, she felt nothing. No love, no hate, just nothing. He didn't matter anymore. None of them did. Kayla turned her attention to Cornelius, still fighting against her dominance with impressive determination. You cast me out to die, she said, called me cursed, stripped me of my name and sent me to the frontier because I wasn't worth the resources to keep alive. You were weak, Cornelius managed through gritted teeth. I was sealed. The power flared again, making wolves whimper. And now I'm awake. So here's what's going to happen, Alpha Cornelius. You're going to take your wolves and go home. You're going to spread the word that the frontier territories south of the Blackridge border are under my protection. Any wolf who crosses into my land without permission will answer to me. Are we clear? You don't have the authority. I'm a Stormborn. I have more authority than you'll ever possess. Kayla leaned down, forcing him to meet her eyes. I could kill you right now, all of you. It would be easy. But I'm choosing mercy because I'm not the monster you tried to make me believe I was. Don't make me regret that choice. She released the pressure. The Blackridge wolves gasped, dragging in air, scrambling to their feet. Several looked terrified, others angry, but none of them moved to attack. They were afraid. Good. Go home, Kayla said. Her voice was calm now, final. And don't come back. Cornelius stared at her with undisguised hatred, but he was smart enough to recognize when he was outmatched. He turned to his wolves. Fall back, he ordered. We're leaving. But, Marcus started, now! The Blackridge wolves fled, not running exactly, but moving fast, putting distance between themselves and the Alpha who'd just dominated their entire war party without breaking a sweat. Darius was the last to leave. He looked at Kayla one final time, his expression full of shock and something that might have been regret. Then he turned and disappeared into the trees. Kayla stood alone in the clearing with her 3 rogues, breathing hard, the power slowly settling back beneath her skin. She'd done it. Actually done it. Faced down her abusers and won. Storm pressed against her leg, whining softly. Congratulations mixed with concern. "I'm okay," Kayla said. She was shaking now, adrenaline crash hitting hard. The world tilted. She'd burned through too much power too fast. Her body couldn't handle it. The price for forcing 30 wolves into submission when she'd had her full strength for less than an hour. Kayla's legs gave out. She hit the ground hard, consciousness flickering. Storm howled. A call for help. Call. And the last thing Kayla saw before darkness took her was Kale running through the trees toward her, his expression torn between pride and terror. She'd won the battle. But the war was just beginning. Kayla woke to voices arguing somewhere above her head. Reckless and stupid. She could have killed herself burning through that much power. But she didn't. She dominated 30 wolves and sent Blackridge running with their tails between their legs. For now. You think Cornelius is going to accept that humiliation? He'll come back with twice the numbers and actual strategy instead of blind aggression. Then we'll be ready. Kayla's eyes cracked open. She was back in Kale's tent, wrapped in furs near the brazier. Her body felt like it had been trampled by a herd of elk, every muscle screaming, bones aching, head pounding with the worst headache of her life. But she was alive. "How long was I out?" Her voice came out rough, throat raw like she'd been screaming. The arguing stopped. Kael appeared in her line of sight, his expression a complicated mix of relief and frustration. 2 days. You burned through more power in those 5 minutes than most alphas use in a month. Your body shut down to recover. 2 days. Kayla tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. The world spun violently. Easy. Vera's hands pressed her back down. The healer looked tired, dark circles under her eyes. Your power reserves are still depleted. You need food, water, and at least another day of rest before you even think about getting up. Storm, the others, are fine. Your rogues have been standing guard outside this tent for 2 days straight. Won't let anyone except Kyle and me get close. Vera's tone was dry. Very protective, very loyal, very annoying when I'm trying to work. Kayla managed a weak smile. "Can I see them?" Kyle moved to the tent entrance and spoke quietly to someone outside. Moments later, Storm pushed through, followed closely by Ember and Ash. All three immediately pressed close to Kayla, whining and licking her face with desperate relief. "I'm okay," she told them, running her hands through their fur. Storm's wound was healing cleanly now. Vera's work, probably. Ember's tail stump looked less ragged. Even Ash's burns were showing signs of improvement. "I'm sorry I scared you." Storm made a huffing sound that clearly communicated his opinion of her apology. Something along the lines of, "You're an idiot, but you're our idiot." "He's not wrong," Kyle said, reading the interaction accurately. "What you did was incredibly dangerous. Effective, but dangerous." "It worked though, didn't it?" Blackridge left. "For now." Kale settled onto a stool near the brazier. "But Vera's right. Cornelius isn't going to accept what happened. You humiliated him in front of his entire war party, made him kneel. Alphas like him don't forgive that kind of blow to their pride. So he'll come back, eventually, with more wolves, better weapons, a plan that accounts for your power." Kale's expression was serious. "You won the first battle, Kayla, but the war is just beginning." Kayla let that sink in while Storm settled against her side, his warmth comforting. "Then I need to learn how to use this power properly. 2 days unconscious every time I use it isn't sustainable." "Agreed, which is why I've sent word to the Northern Realm. We need more support here. Trainers who can teach you control, warriors who can help defend if Blackridge attacks in force, and supplies for a longer campaign." Kale paused. "Also, the Council needs to know you're alive. That changes everything politically." The Council, the ruling body of the Northern Realm, 5 high alphas who've been governing since your family was murdered. They'll have opinions about your sudden reappearance. Will they help? Kale's hesitation told her everything. Some of them will. Others benefited from your family's deaths. They won't be happy about a legitimate heir showing up to reclaim power. So I might have enemies in the north too. Almost certainly. Kale's smile was grim. "Welcome to royal politics, princess. It's like pack dynamics, but with more backstabbing and less honor." Kayla closed her eyes. A week ago, she'd been an exiled Omega waiting to die in a broken cabin. Now she was apparently a princess with two groups of wolves who wanted her dead for completely different reasons. One problem at a time, Vera said, reading her expression. Right now, you need to eat, drink, and recover. Politics can wait until you can stand without passing out. Food arrived, brought by a northern wolf who looked at Kayla with something approaching awe. Roasted meat, bread that was actually fresh, vegetables that hadn't been boiled into mush. Real food. More than Kayla had eaten in months. She forced down what she could while Storm watched with approval. Her appetite was still weak, but Vera insisted she needed the calories to rebuild her power reserves. What happened after I collapsed? Kayla asked between bites. Your rogues formed a defensive circle around you until I arrived, Kale said. Storm nearly took my hand off when I tried to pick you up. Had to project enough alpha dominance to make him back down. And even then, he followed us the entire way back to camp. He doesn't trust easily. Smart wolf. Neither should you, frankly. Kale's tone was pointed. You're valuable now, Kayla. To me, to the Northern Realm, to anyone who wants to use you as a political tool. Be very careful who you trust. I trust you. You shouldn't. Not completely. He met her eyes. I want you alive because you're my best chance at retaking the Northern Throne from usurpers. That doesn't mean my interests and yours will always align, remember that. The honesty was almost refreshing. Kayla had spent 18 years around wolves who smiled while they stabbed you in the back. At least KL was upfront about his motivations. Fair enough, she said. So what happens now? Now you rest. Tomorrow, if you're strong enough, we start training. You need to learn control, how to project power without burning yourself out, how to fight, how to lead. Kale stood. The Northern Realm's reinforcements will arrive in about a week. After that, we decide our next move. Which is? Depends on Blackridge's next move. If they come at us again, we defend. If they back off and leave us alone, we use the time to build strength. His expression hardened. But eventually, Kayla, you're going to have to make a choice. Stay here in the frontier, carve out a small territory and try to survive, or reclaim what was taken from your family 18 years ago. The throne, the realm, everything the usurpers stole. Kale's eyes gleamed. You're the legitimate heir. You have the blood right, and now you have the power to back it up. The question is whether you want it badly enough to fight for it. Kayla looked down at Storm, who was watching her with those intelligent eyes. At Ember and Ash, both resting peacefully now that they knew she was safe. These rogues had chosen to follow her when she was nothing, had stayed when any sane wolf would have run. If she claimed the throne, she could protect them. Could protect every outcast and broken wolf who'd been discarded like garbage. Could build something better than what Blackridge represented. But it would mean war. Blood. Becoming the kind of leader who sent wolves to die for her cause. Was she ready for that? I don't know, she said honestly. Ask me again when I can stand without help. Kyle nodded. Fair enough. Rest now. Tomorrow we train. He left, taking Vera with him. The rogues stayed, settling into a protective circle around Kayla's furs. Their presence was comforting, solid and real and unconditionally loyal. Kayla closed her eyes and let sleep take her again. The next morning brought pain and determination in equal measure. Kayla woke to find she could stand without immediately collapsing, which felt like a victory. Her head still pounded and her muscles were stiff, but it was manageable. Progress. Storm was waiting outside the tent when she emerged. He'd apparently appointed himself her personal guard, because he followed her everywhere, to the camp's edge where she could relieve herself in privacy, to the stream where she could wash the sweat and grime of 2 days unconscious, even to the supply tent where she found clothes that actually fit. The northern wolves watched her pass with expressions ranging from respect to fear to calculation. Word had spread about what happened with Blackridge, about the exiled Omega who turned out to be a princess with enough power to dominate 30 warriors. Kayla wasn't sure how she felt about the attention. Part of her wanted to hide, to go back to being invisible and overlooked. But that option was gone now. She'd shown her power, declared herself publicly. There was no going back. Ready to start? Kale appeared beside her, dressed in training leathers with a wooden practice sword at his belt. Start what? Your education. If you're going to survive what's coming, you need to learn how to fight, how to lead, and how to control your power without killing yourself in the process. He gestured toward a cleared area at the camp's edge. We'll start with the basics. The basics, it turned out, involved getting her ass thoroughly kicked. Kale moved like water, every strike precise and controlled. Kayla had never been trained to fight. Omegas didn't need combat skills, so she was clumsy, slow, and predictable. Within minutes, she was on her back in the dirt, gasping for air. Again, Kyle said, offering his hand. Kayla took it, let him pull her up, and tried again. Got thrown again. The pattern repeated for over an hour until every part of her body was bruised and her pride was in tatters. I'm terrible at this, she panted. You're untrained. There's a difference. Kale wasn't even breathing hard. But you've got good instincts. You just need to learn how to channel them. How long will that take? Years, if you want to be truly skilled. Weeks, if you just want to not die immediately in a fight. He pulled her to her feet again. We don't have years, so we'll focus on survival basics. How to dodge, how to use your opponent's strength against them, how to exploit openings. They trained until Kayla could barely lift her arms. Then Vera took over, teaching her about power control. Your problem, the healer explained, is that you're using power like a blunt instrument, just throwing everything at the problem and hoping it works. That's why you burned out so fast against Blackridge. So how do I fix it? Precision, control. Think of your power like water in a vessel. Right now, you're tipping the entire vessel over. You need to learn to pour just what you need. No more, no less. It sounded simple. It wasn't. Kayla spent hours trying to project dominance without unleashing everything. Failed repeatedly. Either nothing happened, or she knocked over half the camp's training equipment with power surges she couldn't control. This is impossible, she said after her 10th failed attempt. It's difficult, Vera corrected. But you managed to dominate 30 wolves, so clearly you're capable. You just need practice. Practice. Right, as if she had time for that with Blackridge planning their next attack. The days blurred into a routine. Morning combat training with Kyle, afternoon power control with Vera. Evening strategy sessions where they discussed possible threats and responses. And through it all, Storm, Ember, and Ash stayed close, their presence a constant reminder of what she was fighting to protect. A week after the confrontation with Blackridge, the northern reinforcements arrived. 20 wolves in full battle gear led by a woman who radiated the kind of confidence that came from decades of command. She was maybe 40, with dark hair streaked with silver and scars that marked her as a veteran of serious combat. Commander Thane, Kale greeted her with obvious respect. You made good time. We pushed hard once we got your message. Thane's eyes swept the camp before landing on Kayla. So this is the Lost Princess. She looks like Elena, same bone structure. She fights like a Stormborn too, Kyle said with dry amusement. All instinct and no training, but we're working on that. Thane approached Kayla, studying her with an intensity that made Storm growl a warning. The commander ignored him. I knew your father, she said quietly. Served under him for 15 years before he died. He was a good king, fair, strong, the kind of leader wolves would die for. Her expression hardened. The bastards who killed him have been destroying the Northern Realm ever since. If you're truly his daughter, if you're planning to take back what's yours, you have my sword. I'm not planning anything yet, Kayla said honestly. I'm just trying to survive. Survival is a plan, a good one. Thane smiled, and it was fierce. Your father always said that a wolf who survives impossible odds is either very lucky or very dangerous. You've survived rejection, exile, and a confrontation with Blackridge. I don't think you're lucky. The reinforcements integrated into the camp seamlessly, doubling their defensive capability. But they also brought news from the north that made Kael's expression darken. The council knows, he said during that evening strategy session, about Kayla, about her power, about everything. How? Kayla asked. Scouts, spies, take your pick. The council has eyes everywhere, and what happened with Blackridge was too public to hide. Kael looked grim. They've demanded I bring you north to stand before them. Prove your identity and blood right. And if I refuse, then you're an imposter claiming a dead princess's name, and they'll treat you as a threat to the realm's stability. His tone was flat. The council doesn't ask, Kayla. They command. And they have the power to back it up. So I have no choice. You always have a choice. But some choices have worse consequences than others. Kayla looked around the tent. At Kyle, who'd saved her life but admitted he was using her for his own goals. At Vera, who'd broken the seal but made no promises about what came after. At Thane, who offered loyalty to a father Kayla barely remembered. They all wanted something from her. All saw her as a tool to achieve their own objectives. But Storm, lying at her feet, wanted nothing except her survival. Ember and Ash, curled together near the brazier, asked for nothing but food and safety. Maybe that was the difference between Pack and politics. Pack was simple, direct, honest in its needs. When does the council want to see me? Kayla asked. As soon as possible. We could leave in 2 days if you're recovered enough to travel. Kale hesitated. There's something else. The council sent this. He pulled a sealed letter from his jacket and handed it to Kayla. The seal was unfamiliar, a silver wolf under a crescent moon. She broke it and read. The handwriting was elegant, formal, and utterly cold. To the individual claiming the name Kyla Stormborn, you will present yourself before the Northern Council within 1 lunar cycle to substantiate your claims of royal lineage. Bring proof of your blood right. Failure to comply will result in your denunciation as an impostor and enemy of the realm. You are advised to come alone and unarmed. The Council guarantees safe passage, but not safe return should you fail to prove your identity. High Alpha Marcus Ironwood, first chair of the Northern Council. Kayla read it twice, her anger building with each word. They think I'm lying. After everything, they think I'm some random wolf pretending to be their dead princess. Can you blame them? Vera asked quietly. The royal family was slaughtered 18 years ago, every member accounted for and buried. Now you show up claiming to be the heir everyone thought was dead. Of course they're skeptical. So what proof do they want? Blood test? Magical verification? Both, probably. Plus demonstrations of power, knowledge of royal protocol, maybe testimony from anyone who knew you as an infant. Kyle's expression was serious. The council isn't going to accept your claim just because I vouch for you. They'll want absolute certainty. And if I can't provide it, then they'll either exile you from the Northern Realm or eliminate you as a threat. Depends how paranoid they're feeling. He met her eyes. This is dangerous, Kayla. The council includes at least 2 alphas who benefited from your family's deaths. They have every reason to declare you an imposter regardless of the truth. Then why go? Because if you don't, you lose any claim to the throne. You become just another rogue in the frontier, and Blackridge will eventually hunt you down. Kale's tone was harsh but honest. You need the council's recognition to have any legitimate power in the north. Without it, you're nothing. There it was again, that word, nothing. Kayla had spent 18 years being nothing, being told she was worthless, broken, cursed. She'd started to believe it, but she wasn't nothing anymore. She was a Stormborn, a princess, an alpha with enough power to make trained warriors kneel, and she was done letting others define her worth. Fine, she said. I'll go to the council. I'll prove who I am. And when they try to dismiss me or eliminate me, I'll show them exactly what happens when you underestimate a wolf who survived the frontier. Kale's smile was approving. That's the spirit. We leave in 2 days. Use the time to rest and prepare. The journey north will take a week, and you'll need your strength for what comes after. The meeting dispersed. Kayla stayed in the tent with her rogues, staring at the letter and trying not to think about everything that could go wrong. Storm nudged her hand with his nose. A question, a comfort. I'm scared, she admitted quietly. What if I fail? What if they're right and I'm just nobody pretending to be someone important? Storm's answering growl was unambiguous. She was Pack. She was Alpha. She was his, and nothing else mattered. Kayla smiled despite her fear. You're right. I survived Blackridge. I survived rejection and exile and everything they threw at me. I can survive a council of pompous alphas who think they know better than everyone else. Her wolf stirred in agreement, and for the first time since waking up, Kayla felt the power settle comfortably beneath her skin, not fighting to escape, not burning out of control, just there, ready when she needed it. Progress. The 2 days of preparation passed in a blur of training and planning. Kyle drilled her on northern politics, who was on the council, their individual strengths and weaknesses, which ones might be allies and which were definitely enemies. Vera worked on her power control, pushing her to project dominance in precise, controlled bursts instead of overwhelming waves. And Thane taught her how to walk like royalty. Confidence, the commander explained. You're not asking for their approval. You're demanding recognition of your birthright. Head up, shoulders back, eye contact maintained. You're a Stormborn. Act like it. It felt ridiculous at first. Kayla had spent 18 years keeping her head down, making herself small and invisible. But Thane was relentless. Again, no, don't look at the ground. Look at me. I'm a council member who thinks you're an imposter. Convince me otherwise without saying a word. They practiced until Kayla could walk into a room and command attention through sheer presence, until she could meet an alpha's eyes without flinching, until she believed, at least a little bit, that she deserved to be there. The night before they were set to leave, Kayla couldn't sleep. She sat outside her tent, watching stars and trying to quiet her racing thoughts. Nervous? Thane's voice came from the darkness. Terrified, Kayla admitted. The commander settled beside her, comfortable in the silence for a moment. I was there the night your family died. Fought beside your father until the assassins overwhelmed us. Watched him fall defending your mother while she tried to escape with you. Kayla turned to look at her. You were there? One of the few survivors. I carried scars from that night for years. Thane's expression was distant, remembering. Your father could have run, could have saved himself. But he chose to buy Elena time instead, held off 20 assassins long enough for her to reach the border. Did you see my mother after that? No. She disappeared into the southern territories, and we assumed both of you died from injuries or exposure. When Kyle sent word that you were alive, Thane shook her head. I didn't believe it at first, thought it was a cruel joke or mistaken identity. But then I saw you, and there's no mistaking those eyes. You have your father's eyes. I don't remember him. You were barely a year old when he died, but he loved you, talked about you constantly, called you his little storm because you cried loud enough to shake the castle. Thane smiled at the memory. He would have been proud of what you've become, an Omega who survived exile and became an Alpha strong enough to dominate 30 wolves. That's the kind of impossible victory he would have celebrated. Or he would have been ashamed that his daughter spent 18 years scrubbing floors and being treated like garbage. No. Thane's tone was firm. He would have been furious at the wolves who treated you that way, but proud that you survived it. Survival is its own kind of strength, Kayla. Don't discount what you accomplished just by refusing to die. They sat in comfortable silence after that, watching the stars and listening to the camp settle for the night. Tomorrow, they would leave for the Northern Realm. Tomorrow, Kayla would face the council and prove her blood right or die trying. But tonight, she was just a wolf sitting with a veteran warrior, learning about the father she'd never known and the legacy she'd inherited without asking for it. Storm joined them eventually, pressing against Kayla's side with his usual steadfast presence. Ember and Ash followed, completing their small pack. They're very loyal, Thane observed. Rogues usually don't bond that strongly, that fast. They chose me when I was nothing, when I had nothing to offer them. Kayla ran her hand through Storm's fur. I think they understand what it's like to be cast aside, to be deemed worthless and left to die. Then they're the perfect pack for a princess who rose from nothing. Thane stood, stretching. Get some sleep, Kayla. Tomorrow starts a new chapter. You'll want to be rested for it. She left, and Kayla was alone with her rogues under the stars. I'm going to need you all with me, she told them quietly. The North is going to be dangerous, complicated, full of wolves who want to use me or kill me. I can't promise it'll be safe. Storm's tail wagged once. He didn't care about safe. He cared about pack. All right then, Kayla smiled. We go north. We prove I'm who I say I am. And if the council tries to eliminate me, her wolf stirred, ready. We show them that the Stormborn line isn't as dead as they thought. They left at dawn with an escort of 15 northern wolves, enough to look official but not so many as to seem like an invasion force. Kyle led, with Kayla riding beside him on a horse she barely knew how to control. The rogues ran alongside, tireless and alert. The journey north took them through territories Kayla had never seen. They passed through dense forests that gave way to rolling hills, crossed rivers on stone bridges that looked ancient. saw distant villages where wolves lived in actual communities instead of predatory pack structures. It was beautiful. Peaceful in a way Blackridge never was. This is what the frontier could be, Kyle said, noticing her expression. With proper leadership and protection. Your family believed in building communities where wolves could thrive instead of just survive. And the usurpers? Believe in strength above all else. Rule through fear and dominance. They've turned the Northern Realm into a military state where showing weakness gets you killed. His jaw tightened. It's not what your father wanted. Not what he died protecting. On the 5th day, they reached the northern border, a massive wall of stone and timber that stretched across the landscape as far as Kayla could see. Guards in silver armor watched from towers, and the gates were reinforced with metal that gleamed in the sunlight. The ironwood wall, Kale explained, built by the usurpers after they took power. They claim it's to protect the realm from frontier threats. Really, it's to control who enters and leaves. They were stopped at the gate by guards who examined their credentials with suspicion. One of them, a young wolf who couldn't have been more than 20, stared at Kayla with unconcealed curiosity. Is it true? He asked quietly. Are you really Princess Kayla Stormborn? That's what I'm here to prove, Kayla said. My grandmother served in the royal household. She told stories about the princess, said she had eyes like starlight and a cry that could wake the dead. He smiled nervously. She also said the princess died the night the assassins came, that there were no survivors. Your grandmother was almost right. There was one survivor. Kayla met his eyes. Me. The guard looked like he wanted to say more, but his commander barked an order and he stepped back, allowing them to pass. Beyond the wall, the landscape changed dramatically. The wild beauty of the frontier gave way to cultivated lands, farms and orchards arranged in neat rows, villages connected by maintained roads, and everywhere the signs of wolves living in structured society. But there was also fear. Kayla saw it in the way villagers watched their escort pass, in the way wolves hurried their children inside when the northern warriors appeared, in the tension that hung over even the most peaceful-looking settlements. This wasn't a realm of wolves living in harmony. This was a realm under occupation, ruled by wolves who'd taken power through murder and held it through intimidation. They're afraid, Kayla said quietly. They have reason to be, Thane replied from behind her. The usurpers rule through public executions and collective punishment. Show even a hint of dissent, and your entire family pays the price. That's not how your father governed. How did he govern? With strength when necessary, but compassion whenever possible. He believed wolves were strongest when they chose to follow, instead of being forced. Thane's expression was sad. The realm was prosperous under his rule, peaceful. Now it's just surviving. They traveled for 2 more days through increasingly populated territories. The villages became towns, the towns became cities, and everywhere Kayla went, she felt eyes watching, assessing, wondering if the rumors were true. Was she really the lost princess? Or just another pretender to be eliminated? On the 7th day, they reached the capital. North Haven was massive, a city of stone and timber built against a mountain range that glowed white with snow. The royal palace sat at the city's heart, a fortress of dark stone and silver spires that dominated the landscape. It should have felt like coming home. Instead, it felt like approaching a prison. The council is waiting, Kyle said as they passed through the city gates. They've arranged a formal audience for tomorrow at noon. Tonight you'll stay in guest quarters under guard. Guard for protection or guard to make sure I don't run? Both, probably. His smile was grim. Welcome to the Northern Realm, Princess. Try not to get assassinated before you prove your identity. They were escorted to the palace through streets filled with wolves who stopped to stare. Some looked hopeful, others hostile, most just confused. The guest quarters were luxurious compared to anything Kayla had experienced. A full suite with soft beds, running water, and enough food to feed 20 wolves. But the guards posted outside her door made it clear she was a prisoner in everything but name. Storm, Ember, and Ash weren't allowed inside. They had to stay in kennels beneath the palace, separated from her for the first time since they'd met. I don't like this, Kayla told Kyle. Neither do I. But the council won't allow rogues in the palace. It's not negotiable. He paused at her door. Get some rest. Tomorrow you face 5 of the most powerful alphas in the realm. You'll need your strength. That night, alone in a room that was too big and too quiet, Kayla barely slept. She kept reaching for Storm's reassuring presence and finding nothing. Kept listening for ember and ash and hearing only silence. When dawn finally came, she was almost relieved. Vera arrived to help her dress. Not in warrior's leathers or servant's rags, but in formal clothes befitting a princess, a gown of silver and white that caught the light, hair braided in the northern style, even jewelry that Vera claimed had belonged to Kayla's mother. "You look like royalty," the healer said, stepping back to assess her work. Kayla looked at herself in the mirror and barely recognized the wolf staring back. Gone was the cowering Omega who'd scrubbed floors and accepted abuse. In her place stood someone who looked powerful, confident, dangerous. "I feel like I'm wearing a costume," Kayla admitted. "You are." The costume of someone who knows her worth and demands recognition. Vera's expression was serious. "The council will test you, try to break you, make you doubt yourself. Don't let them. You survived Blackridge. You survived rejection and exile. You can survive this." At noon precisely, guards escorted Kayla to the council chamber. The room was massive, circular, with 5 thrones arranged in a semicircle at the far end. Each throne was occupied by an alpha whose power radiated like heat. These weren't ordinary wolves. These were legends, warriors, leaders who'd shaped the Northern Realm for decades. And they were all staring at Kayla like she was an interesting insect they were deciding whether to crush. "Kayla Vire," the center alpha said. He was massive, easily the largest wolf in the room, with iron-gray hair and scars covering his face. Or should I say, the wolf claiming to be Kayla Stormborn. "Approach and state your case." Kayla walked forward. Remembered Thane's training, head up, shoulders back, meet their eyes without flinching. She stopped at the designated mark on the floor and looked at each council member in turn. "I am Kayla Stormborn," she said. Her voice carried through the chamber, strong and clear. "Daughter of King Theron Nightshade and Princess Lyra Moonfell, heir to the Northern Realm by blood and birthright. And I've come to reclaim what was stolen from my family 18 years ago." The silence that followed was absolute. Then the center alpha, Marcus Ironwood, the one who'd signed the threatening letter, smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. "Prove it," he said. "Prove you're not just another ambitious Omega with delusions of grandeur. Because if you can't," his eyes gleamed with dark promise, "we'll eliminate you as the fraud you are." Kayla's wolf stirred, ready. This was it, the moment that would determine everything. She smiled back at Marcus Ironwood with all the confidence of a princess who'd survived impossible odds. "I thought you'd never ask." Marcus Ironwood leaned forward on his throne, his expression a mix of amusement and contempt. "You claim to be the daughter of King Theron. Very well. Let's start with something simple. What was your father's favorite hunting ground?" Kayla opened her mouth, then closed it. She had no idea. She'd been a year old when he died. The seal had buried even the fragments of memory she might have retained. "I don't know," she said honestly. "I was an infant when assassins murdered my family. My mother sealed my memories to hide my identity." "How convenient," another council member said. This one was a woman with white hair and calculating eyes. "You can't answer basic questions about your supposed family because of a convenient magical seal that no one can verify existed." "Vera Frostborn can verify it," Kayla shot back. "She's the healer who broke it. She was there the night I was born." "Vera serves Kael Nightshade, who has every reason to fabricate an heir to challenge our authority," Marcus said dismissively. "Her testimony is worthless." "Then what would you accept as proof?" Kayla demanded. "You ask questions I couldn't possibly answer, then dismiss any evidence I provide. It's almost like you've already decided I'm a fraud regardless of the truth." "Mind your tone," the third council member growled. He was stocky and scarred, with eyes that promised violence. "You're addressing the rulers of the Northern Realm, not your servant masters in whatever backwater pack spawned you." Kayla's wolf stirred, angry at the disrespect. She forced it down. Getting into a dominance fight with 5 high alphas would end badly, no matter how powerful she was. "Blood verification," the white-haired woman said. "If you're truly Theron's daughter, your blood will carry markers that can't be faked. We have samples from the royal family preserved in the vault. A simple test will prove or disprove your claim definitively." "Fine," Kayla said. Test my blood. Marcus's smile widened. Oh, we will. But first, I think we should discuss your rather colorful recent history. You claim to be a princess, yet you spent 18 years as an Omega in Black Ridge territory. How does that happen exactly? My mother hid me there, sealed my power to make me appear weak so I'd be overlooked. Or you're actually Omega, and this seal story is fabrication to explain why you have no royal bearing, no training, no knowledge of anything a true princess would know. Marcus stood, descending from his throne. He was massive, easily 7 feet tall in human form, built like a mountain. I knew Theron, fought beside him. He was the strongest alpha of his generation. His daughter would have shown signs of power from birth, seal or no seal. I did show signs, Kayla said, forcing her voice to stay level. My wolf was always struggling against the seal. That's why my shifts were painful and incomplete. That's why I seemed broken. Or you're just broken, and you're using Kael's desperation to create an heir as an opportunity to gain power you don't deserve. Marcus circled her like a predator. Tell me, Omega, what do you really want? Money? Status? Protection from whatever pack cast you out? I want what's mine by birthright. The throne my father died protecting. The throne, Marcus repeated. He laughed, deep and mocking. You think you can walk in here, claim to be a dead princess, and we'll just hand you a kingdom? You've got ambition, I'll give you that. Stupidity too, but mainly ambition. The other council members were watching with varying degrees of interest. The white-haired woman looked skeptical but willing to consider evidence. The scarred male looked hostile. The fourth and fifth members, both quiet so far, seemed to be reserving judgment. The blood test? Kayla said. You said it would prove the truth. So let's do it and stop wasting time. Oh, we'll get to that. But first, I want to see this power you supposedly possess. The reports from the frontier claim you dominated 30 Black Ridge wolves without fighting, that you forced them into submission through sheer dominance. Marcus's eyes gleamed. Show us, right now. Make this council kneel the way you supposedly made Cornelius kneel. It was a trap. Kayla knew it immediately. If she tried and failed, she'd prove she was weak. If she tried and succeeded, she'd be threatening the council directly, which would give them justification to eliminate her as a danger to the realm. But if she refused, she'd look afraid. Weak. Unworthy. No good options. I'm not going to force the council into submission, Kayla said carefully. That's not why I'm here. I came to prove my identity, not to threaten— Because you can't, Marcus interrupted. All those stories from the frontier, exaggeration and lies, you probably just got lucky, caught some inexperienced wolves off guard. But against real alphas, trained warriors, you'd crumble. He was baiting her, trying to provoke a response that would justify his hostility. Kayla took a breath, remembered Vera's training. Control. Precision. Only use what you need. I could make you kneel, she said quietly. But I won't, because I'm not here to conquer the council. I'm here to reclaim my family's legacy and help the realm heal from 18 years of fear-based rule. Fear-based? The scarred council member stood, his power flaring. We've kept the Northern Realm stable through strength and discipline. That's not fear. That's leadership. Leadership that requires public executions and collective punishment? Kayla met his eyes. Leadership that makes villagers hide their children when warriors pass through? I saw the fear in your people. That's not stability. That's oppression. You saw nothing, Marcus said, his voice dropping to something dangerous. You're an outsider, a pretender. You know nothing about what it takes to rule. Then teach me, Kayla said. The words came out before she could stop them. If I'm the heir, if my blood proves it, then teach me what I need to know instead of trying to eliminate me for being inconvenient. Silence. The white-haired woman, her nameplate read High Alpha Selene Moon Whisper, actually looked surprised. You're asking for training? I'm asking to be given a chance. My father died before he could teach me. My mother spent her last moments sealing my power to save my life. I've survived 18 years of abuse and exile. I've fought my way here despite everything working against me. Kayla's voice strengthened. If the council truly serves the Northern Realm, then help me become the leader I was born to be instead of wasting energy trying to prove I'm a fraud. Bold words from an Omega who can't even prove she's who she claims, the scarred member said. Then let's prove it, Kayla shot back. Stop stalling. Test my blood. Use whatever magic or verification you need. And when it shows I'm telling the truth, we can discuss what comes next." Marcus looked like he wanted to argue further, but Celine raised her hand. "Enough. The girl has a point. We're wasting time on posturing when simple verification would settle this." She gestured to guards at the chamber's edge. "Bring the royal blood archive and a mage certified in lineage verification." The next hour was tense and clinical. A mage, ancient and frail but radiating power that made Kayla's wolf respectful, drew her blood with silver needles that burned. He compared it to samples preserved in crystal vials, muttering incantations in a language Kayla didn't recognize. The council watched in silence. Finally, the mage turned to face them. "The blood carries markers consistent with the Stormborn line," he announced. His voice was thin but clear. "Maternal and paternal both. This wolf is descended from King Theron and Princess Lyra. The probability of false matching is less than 1 in 10 million. The chamber erupted. "Impossible! The samples could be contaminated. She's actually—" Marcus's roar cut through the chaos. "Silence!" Everyone stopped. Even the mage looked nervous. "Explain," Marcus demanded. "How can she be the princess when we buried her body 18 years ago?" "You buried someone," Celine said quietly. "Perhaps not who you thought." "My mother switched us," Kayla said. The memory was surfacing now, fragments the seal had hidden. "She had me and another baby born the same night. When the assassins came, she gave them the other child. Made them think I was dead while she escaped with me." "What other child?" Marcus demanded. "A stillborn from one of the servants. My mother was a healer. She would have been present at the birth. She must have—" Kayla's throat tightened. "She must have known the attack was coming. Prepared for it." Vera's voice came from the chamber entrance. Kayla hadn't noticed her arrive. Elena Stormborn was the most gifted healer of her generation. She could sense death approaching days in advance. If she knew assassins were coming, she would have planned accordingly. "You weren't summoned, healer," Marcus said coldly. "No, but I was there that night. I delivered both babies, Kayla and the stillborn servant's child. Elena asked me to prepare the second body, said it was for burial rites. I didn't understand why until later." Vera's expression was pained. She sacrificed that child's rest to save her own daughter, used its body as a decoy. "That's—" The scarred council member looked ill. "That's dark magic, desecration. That's a mother doing whatever it took to protect her child," Vera said sharply. "Judge her if you want, but it worked. Kayla survived." Marcus was staring at Kayla with an expression she couldn't read. Calculation, fear, maybe even respect. "So she's legitimate," he said finally. "The blood doesn't lie. She's Theron's daughter." "Which means she has a legal claim to the throne," Celine added. "A claim that supersedes the council's authority." "The throne was dissolved after the royal family's death," the scarred member protested. "We rule by council mandate, not royal decree." "A mandate that was only valid if there were no living heirs," the fourth council member spoke for the first time. She was young compared to the others, maybe 30, with sharp features and sharper eyes. "If an heir exists, the throne is automatically restored. That's northern law. Unchangeable even by council vote." "She's untrained," Marcus said, "unprepared. Giving her the throne would be disaster." "Then we train her," Celine said. "As she herself suggested, we have time. The realm isn't going to collapse if we take a few months to properly prepare the heir. Or we could declare her unfit due to her Omega upbringing and maintain council rule," the scarred member said bluntly. "The law has provisions for mentally or physically incapable heirs." "I'm not incapable," Kayla said. Her wolf was pushing forward now, tired of being discussed like she wasn't in the room. "I'm untrained, yes. Unprepared, absolutely. But I dominated 30 wolves 2 weeks ago. I survived rejection, exile, and assassination attempts. I think that proves I'm capable of learning." "Capable of surviving isn't the same as capable of ruling," Marcus said. "No, but it's a start." Kayla met his eyes. "You want to test me? Fine. Set whatever challenges you want. Give me tasks to prove I can lead. But stop pretending this is about my capability when it's really about your fear of losing power." Marcus's power flared, pressing against her like a physical force. "Watch yourself, girl. Blood right or not, I've ruled this realm for 18 years. I've fought wars, crushed rebellions, and built stability from chaos. You've scrubbed floors and run from fights. Don't lecture me about power. Kayla's own power rose to meet his. Not attacking, just refusing to be pushed down. The air between them crackled. "Stop!" Celine's voice cut through the tension. "Both of you, this posturing helps nothing." She stood, moving between them. Her own power radiated out, not threatening, but commanding enough that both Kayla and Marcus backed down slightly. "Here's what will happen," Celine said. "Kayla Stormborn is the legitimate heir, that's proven. But she's also right that she needs training before she can assume the throne. So we train her. 6 months. She learns politics, combat, leadership, magic, everything a ruler needs. During that time, the council continues to govern." "And after 6 months," Marcus asked, "we evaluate. If she's proven herself capable, we return the throne to its rightful heir. If not, we discuss alternative arrangements." Celine looked at Kayla. "Is that acceptable?" It wasn't really a question, but it was more than Kayla had expected to get. "Yes," she said. "I'll prove I can do this." "See that you do," Celine said. "Because if you fail, Marcus will use it as justification to eliminate you permanently. He'll claim you're a threat to stability and order your execution." "I won't fail." "We'll see." Celine returned to her throne. "This session is concluded. Kayla Stormborn will be housed in the royal wing and begin training tomorrow. All in favor?" 3 hands raised, Celine's, the young female council members, and surprisingly, the 5th member who hadn't spoken at all, an older male who looked half asleep. Marcus and the scarred member voted against. "Motion carries," Celine declared. "Welcome home, princess. Try not to disappoint us." The royal wing was obscenely luxurious compared to anywhere Kayla had ever lived. Her quarters included a bedroom larger than the entire cabin she'd survived in, a private bath with running hot water, a sitting room with furniture that probably cost more than Blackridge's entire treasury, and windows that overlooked the entire city. It should have felt like a dream come true. Instead, it felt like a cage. Storm, Ember, and Ash were still in the kennels. Kayla's requests to have them brought to her quarters were denied. Rogues weren't allowed in the royal wing, especially not in the princess's chambers. "It's for your protection," the guard explained when Kayla argued. "Rogues are unpredictable, dangerous. They're my pack. They're animals, Your Highness, not appropriate companions for royalty." Kayla wanted to argue further, but Kael pulled her aside. "Pick your battles," he said quietly. "You just won recognition from the council. Don't waste political capital fighting about where your rogues sleep." "They're not just rogues, they're—" "I know. But to everyone else here, they're a liability. A weakness someone could exploit." Kael's expression was serious. "If you want to protect them, play the game. Prove you're capable. Once you have real power, you can make whatever rules you want about who stays in your quarters." He was right. Kayla hated that he was right, but he was. "Fine," she said, "but I visit them every day, non-negotiable. I'll make sure you get access to the kennels." Kael paused. "Congratulations, by the way. You faced down the council and won. That's not nothing." "I won the right to be tested for 6 months. That's not the same as actually winning. It's more than anyone expected you to get. Marcus wanted you dead. Celine bought you time. Use it wisely." The training started immediately and was brutal. Dawn combat sessions with Commander Thane, who hit harder than Kael and showed no mercy. "Your enemies won't care that you're royal," she'd say, while Kayla was face down in the dirt. "They'll just see a target. Defend yourself better." Mid-morning politics lessons with Celine herself, covering everything from trade agreements to succession laws to the intricate web of alliances that kept the Northern Realm functioning. "Rule through intelligence, not just power," Celine lectured. "Any fool can dominate through strength. A true leader builds loyalty through wisdom." Afternoon magic training with the ancient mage who'd verified her blood. His name was Aldrich, and he was terrifyingly powerful despite appearing one strong breeze from death. "Your power is raw," he explained, "unrefined, like a river that could either water crops or destroy villages. We must build channels, control, precision." Evening strategy sessions with Kael, reviewing what she'd learned and planning how to navigate the political minefield of council politics. By the end of each day, Kayla was exhausted, bruised, and questioning whether this was actually worth it. but she kept going, because the alternative was giving up, and she'd survived too much to quit now. The visits to Storm, Ember, and Ash were the only thing that kept her sane. She'd slip away during the few free hours she had, ignoring disapproving looks from guards, and just sit with her rogues in the kennels. They weren't happy. The kennels were clean and well-maintained, but they were still cages. Storm paced constantly. Ember's tail stump was raw from stress. Ash wouldn't eat unless Kayla fed him by hand. "I'm sorry," she told them on the 10th night. "I know this isn't what I promised, but I need to play their game long enough to win. Then we can change the rules." Storm pressed his nose against the bars, and Kayla reached through to scratch behind his ears. He'd lost weight. They all had. "Just a little longer," she whispered. "I swear." 3 months into training, everything changed. Kayla was in a politics session with Celine when an urgent message arrived. Blackridge forces had attacked a northern border village, burned it to the ground, killed everyone who couldn't escape. "They're claiming it was retaliation for harboring an enemy of their pack," the messenger reported. "They say you, Princess Kayla, violated your exile by entering northern territory. That makes any realm that shelters you a legitimate target." Celine's expression was ice. "How many dead?" 43, mostly civilians, women and children. The chamber fell silent. "We need to respond," Kyle said. He'd been observing the session. "If we don't, Blackridge will see it as weakness. They'll attack again." "Agreed," Celine said. "But how we respond matters. A full military strike could escalate into war." "So we do nothing while they murder our people?" Thane demanded. "I didn't say that." Celine looked at Kayla. "This is your fault, in a sense. You're the reason Blackridge is attacking. What do you propose we do about it?" All eyes turned to her. Kayla's mind raced. 43 dead. Because of her. Because Cornelius was using her as an excuse to strike at the north. "I'll go to Blackridge," she said. "Absolutely not," Kale said immediately. "They want me. They're using me as justification for attacks. So I remove that justification. I face Cornelius directly and end this before more people die." "That's suicide," Thane said flatly. "Cornelius will kill you the moment you cross his border. Maybe. Or maybe I show him that I'm not the cursed Omega he cast out anymore. That I'm someone he should fear instead of hunt." Kayla looked at Celine. "You wanted to know if I can make hard decisions, if I can lead. This is leadership, taking responsibility for my actions and their consequences. It's also reckless and potentially disastrous," Marcus said. He'd entered the chamber quietly. "But it might work. Cornelius is old-fashioned. If she challenges him properly, according to traditional law, he'll have to respond. It's a matter of honor." "You want her to challenge him to single combat?" Celine looked skeptical. "She's been training for 3 months. Cornelius has been fighting for 50 years. She doesn't have to win. She just has to survive long enough to make her point." Marcus's smile was sharp. "Although winning would certainly prove she's worthy of the throne." "This is insane," Kael said. "This is necessary," Kayla countered. "Blackridge won't stop unless someone makes them. Let me be that someone." Celine studied her for a long moment. "You understand that if you lose, if Cornelius kills you, Blackridge's aggression will be validated? They'll claim they were right to hunt you, and we'll have lost any moral high ground." "I understand. And you're willing to risk your life and the realm's stability on a fight you'll probably lose?" "Yes." Celine looked at the other council members, at Kael, at Thane. "It's her decision," she said finally. "The heir has the right to defend her honor and her people. If she wants to face Blackridge, we'll support her." "I vote against this," Kael said. "Noted, but the decision is made." Celine turned to Kayla. "You have 1 week to prepare. Then we send an official challenge to Alpha Cornelius. May the moon have mercy on you because Blackridge won't." The week passed in a blur of intense preparation. Thane drilled her relentlessly on combat tactics. Aldrich taught her how to channel power into physical attacks without burning out. Vera worked on healing techniques in case she survived with injuries. And every night, Kayla visited her rogues and tried not to think about the fact that she might die in a week. On the 6th night, Storm did something he'd never done before. He shifted. Kayla had never seen him in human form. Most rogues stayed wolves permanently, having given up on the complications of human shape. But Storm shifted, revealing a man maybe 30 years old, scarred and lean, with gray hair and eyes that still held all of his wolf's intelligence. "You're going to die," he said. His voice was rough from disuse. "Probably," Kayla agreed. "We should be with you, fighting beside you. You'd be killed. The moment Blackridge sees rogues supporting me, they'll use it as justification to eliminate all of you." "We don't care." Storm gripped the bars. "You chose us when no one else would. Let us choose you back." "I am letting you choose. I'm choosing to protect you by keeping you safe here." "Safe in a cage?" Storm's laugh was bitter. "We were free in the frontier, starving and injured, but free. Here we're fed and healed and trapped. Which is really better?" Kayla didn't have an answer for that. "When this is over," she said quietly, "when I either win or die trying, I want you to run. Don't stay here. Don't let them keep you caged. Find somewhere in the frontier and be free again. And if you win, then I'll come find you, and we'll figure out how to be pack without cages or rules or anyone telling us who we're allowed to be." Storm studied her phase. Then, surprisingly, he smiled. "You've changed. When we found you in that cabin, you were broken. Dying. Now you're talking about challenging an alpha who destroyed you and planning what comes after. That's growth. Or stupidity. Sometimes they're the same thing." He reached through the bars and gripped her hand. "Win, Kayla. Don't just survive. Win. Show them what happens when they underestimate a wolf who rose from nothing." The challenge was issued formally. Cornelius accepted with what the messenger described as eager bloodthirstiness. The fight would take place on neutral ground, a valley between Blackridge and Northern Territory. Each side could bring witnesses but no armed forces. The challenge was single combat to submission or death, governed by traditional laws that both packs recognized. Kayla traveled to the valley with an escort of 20 northern wolves, including Kyle, Thane, Celine, and surprisingly, Marcus. The council had come to witness. "Either you win and prove yourself worthy," Marcus explained, "or you lose and we can stop wasting resources on training an heir who can't even defeat an old alpha." "Your support is overwhelming," Kayla said dryly. "I don't support you. I'm here to see if you're worth the trouble." They arrived at the valley to find Blackridge already there. Cornelius stood at the center, looking like a mountain in wolf form. Darius was beside him. So was Mara. And dozens of other faces Kayla recognized from 18 years of torment. "The cursed Omega," Cornelius said when he saw her. "I heard you were claiming to be Northern royalty now. That's a step up from scrubbing floors." "I am Northern royalty," Kayla said. She walked forward until only 20 feet separated them. "Daughter of King Theron Nightshade, and I'm here to answer for the attack on our border village." "Our?" Cornelius laughed. "You're not Northern. You're Blackridge's trash that somehow survived exile, though not for much longer." "The rules are clear," Celine called out. "Single combat, no interference. First to submit or die loses." "I have no intention of accepting her submission," Cornelius said. "This ends in death." "Your funeral," Kayla said. They shifted simultaneously. Cornelius in wolf form was massive, easily twice Kayla's size despite her own considerable bulk. He was scarred, experienced, and radiated the confidence of a wolf who'd never lost a serious fight. Kayla was powerful, but inexperienced. 3 months of training versus 50 years of combat. The odds were not in her favor. Cornelius attacked first, moving with surprising speed for his size. Kayla dodged, barely, and felt his jaws snap closed where her throat had been a second before. She countered with a strike powered by dominance, not physical force but alpha will made manifest. It connected, and Cornelius actually stumbled, but he recovered quickly, shaking off the attack like it was nothing. "You'll have to hit harder than that, little Omega," he growled. They circled each other. Kayla's mind raced through Thane's training. Don't match strength against strength. Use speed. Use precision. Exploit weaknesses. Cornelius had scars on his left side, old injuries that probably still ached. His right eye had a slight cloudiness, early cataracts maybe, and he favored his rear left leg just barely. Weaknesses. Kayla feinted left, then struck right, going for the clouded eye. Her claws raked across his face, drawing blood. Cornelius roared and backhanded her with enough force to send her flying. Kayla hit the ground hard, ribs screaming in protest. Get up! She forced herself to her feet. Cornelius was already charging. This time, Kayla didn't dodge. She met him head on, channeling power into the collision. Their bodies crashed together with a sound like thunder, and for a moment they were locked, teeth and claws and pure dominance pushing against each other. Kayla could feel herself weakening. Cornelius was too strong, too experienced. She couldn't win through direct confrontation. So she changed tactics. She stopped fighting his strength and instead flowed around it, using his own momentum to throw him off balance. It was a technique Thane had drilled into her. Turn your opponent's power into a weakness. Cornelius stumbled, surprised, and Kayla struck. Not at his body, but at his mind. She projected dominance with everything she had, focused it like a spear directly at his wolf. Submit. The command hit Cornelius like a physical blow. He staggered, his legs trembling as alpha power crashed over him in waves. But he didn't fall. Not enough, he gasped. His own power flared, pushing back against hers. The collision of dominance made the air crack. Wolves on both sides whimpered, driven to their knees by the sheer pressure. Kayla could feel herself burning out. Using too much power too fast, just like against Blackridge's war party. Her vision was graying at the edges, her heart was stuttering. She was going to lose. Then she heard it. A howl from the northern side. Storm's voice, even though he shouldn't be here, even though he'd been ordered to stay in the kennels. He'd escaped, come to support her. And he wasn't alone. Ember and Ash were howling too. Her pack, her first choice. The wolves who'd believed in her when she was nothing. Kayla felt something shift inside her. Not just power, but purpose. She wasn't fighting for pride or revenge anymore. She was fighting for the right to choose her own pack, to build something better than what Cornelius represented. The power that had been burning out suddenly stabilized, focused, became something controlled and precise instead of wild and overwhelming. Kayla pushed. Cornelius's legs gave out. He hit the ground, forced into submission by dominance he couldn't overcome. The valley fell silent. Kayla stood over Blackridge's alpha, her teeth at his throat, her power holding him down. Submit, she said, or die. For a long moment, Cornelius didn't respond. His pride warred with survival. Then slowly he exposed his throat. I submit, he said. The words came out like ground glass. You win, princess. Kayla stepped back, releasing him. Every part of her body was screaming. She'd burned through most of her power reserves, but she'd won. She'd actually won. The challenge is concluded, Celine announced. Princess Kayla Stormborn is victorious. Under traditional law, Blackridge must cease all hostilities against the Northern Realm and recognize her authority. Cornelius pushed himself to his feet, shifting back to human form. He looked old suddenly, defeated. You're not Omega, he said quietly. No, I never was. You just couldn't see past your own prejudice. What happens now? Now you go home. You stop attacking Northern territory, and you leave me alone. Kayla's voice was steady despite her exhaustion. I don't want revenge, Cornelius. I don't want to destroy Blackridge. I just want you to stop hunting me and let me build something better than what you represent. And what do I represent? Fear, cruelty, a world where strength is the only value that matters. Kayla met his eyes. My father believed in something different. I'm going to try to build that. You can either help or get out of the way. Cornelius studied her for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, he smiled. It wasn't kind, but it was genuine. You've got his eyes, he said. Theron's eyes. I served under him before he became king. He had the same stubborn idealism. He turned to his wolves. We're leaving. Blackridge's business with the Northern Realm is concluded. Darius approached as Blackridge prepared to leave. He looked at Kayla with an expression she couldn't read. I was wrong, he said quietly. About you. About everything. Yes, you were. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. Not for the rejection. You deserve better than me. But for how I did it. For using silver to poison the bond. That was cruelty for cruelty's sake. It was, Kayla agreed. But it also broke the seal and freed my wolf. So in a twisted way, you did me a favor. Still, I'm sorry. I know. Apology noted but not accepted. You don't get forgiveness for torturing someone just because it accidentally worked out for them. Darius nodded, didn't argue, just turned and followed his alpha back toward Blackridge territory. Kayla watched them go, feeling nothing. No anger, no satisfaction, just a vague sense of closure. That chapter of her life was over. Storm, Ember, and Ash bounded toward her, still in wolf form. Kayla dropped to her knees and let them tackle her, their joy and relief washing over her in waves. "You escaped the kennels," she said, trying to sound stern. Storm's response was to lick her face enthusiastically. "You could have been killed. If Blackridge had seen you—" Ember headbutted her gently. Ash whined. "Fine. I'm glad you came, but we're having a serious talk about following orders later." "Let them celebrate," Thane said, approaching. "They broke out of the most secure kennels in the realm to support you. That's loyalty worth rewarding, not punishing." Celine and Marcus joined them. Marcus looked not pleased exactly, but less hostile than before. "You won," he said, "against an alpha twice your size and 10 times your experience. That's impressive." "Thank you." "Don't let it go to your head. Cornelius is old and past his prime. A real threat would have killed you in the first 30 seconds. "Always the optimist," Celine said dryly. She looked at Kayla with something approaching respect. "You've proven yourself worthy. The Council will formally recognize you as heir when we return to Northaven." "And the 6-month trial?" "Concluded. You passed." Celine smiled. "Welcome to the most complicated, frustrating, rewarding job in the realm, Princess. Try not to screw it up." The coronation happened 3 weeks later. It was a massive affair. Wolves from every corner of the northern realm coming to witness the return of the Stormborn line. The ceremony was held in the Great Hall of the palace, with the council and hundreds of witnesses present. Kayla wore a gown that had belonged to her mother, silver and white, with the Stormborn crest embroidered in gold thread. Her hair was braided in the royal style. The crown, recovered from the vault where it had sat for 18 years, was heavy and cold against her forehead. She looked like a queen, felt like a fraud. But when Celine placed the crown on her head and declared her Queen Kayla Stormborn, first of her name, protector of the Northern Realm, the crowd erupted in cheers. Not everyone. Marcus looked sour. A few council supporters looked concerned, but most of the wolves present seemed genuinely happy to have a royal family again. After the ceremony, there was a feast that lasted hours. Kayla endured it, smiling and nodding and accepting congratulations from wolves she'd never met who claimed to have served her father. Finally, she escaped to a balcony overlooking the city. Storm found her there. He'd shifted to human form for the occasion, wearing formal clothes that looked uncomfortable on his scarred frame. "You did it," he said. "From exiled Omega to Queen. That's quite a journey." "I had help," Kayla said. 3 rogues who chose to follow me when I was nothing, a healer who broke an impossible seal, an alpha king who'd been searching for 18 years, a commander who taught me to fight, a council member who gave me a chance, and your own stubborn refusal to die when everyone expected you to." "That too," Kayla smiled. "What happens now?" "Now you rule. Change things, make the realm into something better than what it was. And you, Ember and Ash, what will you do?" Storm was quiet for a moment. "We're your pack. We go where you go, unless you're done with broken rogues now that you're queen." "Never," Kayla said fiercely. She gripped his hand. "You're my first pack, my first choice. That doesn't change because I'm wearing a crown. If anything, it matters more. I need wolves around me who'll tell me the truth instead of what I want to hear." "Then we stay, though I'm going to hate these formal clothes. You can go back to fur most of the time. I'm making it official policy. Rogues are welcome in the royal household. No more cages. No more being treated like animals. The council will object." "The council can deal with it. I'm queen now. I get to make some rules." Storm laughed. "You're going to be a nightmare for the traditionalists." "Good. The traditionalists are part of what's wrong with this realm. Time to shake things up." They stood in comfortable silence, watching the city lights spread below them. Somewhere out there were wolves who'd been cast aside, deemed worthless, left to die. Omegas who couldn't fight, rogues who wouldn't submit, broken things that didn't fit the pack structure. Kayla had been one of them, and now she had the power to help them. It wouldn't be easy. The council would resist. Traditionalists would object. There would be challenges and setbacks, and probably assassination attempts, but she'd survived impossible odds before. She could do it again. Your Majesty, a servant appeared in the doorway. The council is requesting your presence for the first policy meeting. Tell them I'll be there in 5 minutes, Kayla said. The servant left. Storm squeezed her hand once and stepped back. Go be queen. I'll make sure Ember and Ash aren't terrorizing the kitchen staff. Kayla took a breath, straightened her crown, and walked back inside to begin the hardest work of her life. Not fighting, not surviving, but building. Building a realm where no wolf was deemed worthless because they didn't fit someone else's definition of strong. Where Omegas could rise to queen. Where rogues could find home. Where the broken and discarded could be seen not as curses, but as survivors who'd earned their place through sheer determination. It wouldn't happen overnight. It might not happen in her lifetime, but she would start. Because that's what queens did. They didn't just rule. They transformed. And Kayla Stormborn, the exiled Omega who'd risen from nothing, who'd survived rejection and broken seals and faced down alphas twice her size, was just getting started. The Omega they'd tried to destroy had become the queen who would rebuild the world. And this time, she was writing the rules. Years later, when young wolves asked about the rogue queen who changed the Northern Realm, the stories always started the same way. She was nothing. An Omega. Rejected, exiled, left to die in the frontier. But she survived. Not because she was the strongest or the smartest or the most powerful. She survived because she refused to accept what others said she was. She survived because 3 broken rogues chose her. Because a healer saw what was sealed inside. Because she learned that weakness wasn't the absence of strength. It was the refusal to keep fighting when everything said you should quit. And when she became queen, she didn't forget where she came from. She built a realm where the discarded could rise. Where strength was measured not in dominance, but in endurance. Where the wolves cast aside were given a second chance to prove their worth. Some called her the Omega Queen. Others called her the Breaker of Chains. But those who knew her best, the 3 rogues who never left her side, the healer who'd freed her power, the warriors who'd taught her to fight, they called her by the simplest name of all. Kayla. Just Kayla. The wolf who proved that sometimes the ones everyone thinks are worthless turn out to be the ones who change everything.